Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to Extra Tickets, Please. This is our spin-off show that's all about movies, and today we're going to be reviewing The Batman. This is Matt Reeves, the Batman. Matt Reeves, the director of the last two Planet of the Apes movies, and it stars...
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
No. Also, probably because I haven't seen the latest Planet of the Apes movie.
Yeah, so
I never saw that one.
Of the latest trilogy, he only directed part 2 and 3. I don't remember who directed part 1.
Sorry, you already got you off topic.
Yes, I knew this was gonna happen.
Movie I gotta watch.
We're gonna get back on track.
Movie I gotta watch.
Again, this is The Batman, and it stars our titular hero, Batman / Bruce Wayne, as Robert Pattinson. And then we've got Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman.
Great Catwoman.
We've got Paul Dano playing the Riddler. We've got Colin Farrell as
the Penguin. Oz.
And then that's our big players, I think. So when we jump into this, we're gonna kind of give our spoiler-free thoughts. Just kind of is this a good movie? Is this not? Kind of to boil it down to its most basic form. And then once we get through that, we'll kind of go through the plot kind of beat by beat, and we can kind of get heavy into spoilers. Mm-hmm. So for now, what did you think of The Batman?
I really liked it. I was hesitant on how long it was going to be.
Yeah, so this is a 3-hour long film.
It's 2 hours and 58 minutes to be exact.
Okay. 3
Every time I told somebody and I was like, it's 3 hours, and they'd be like, really? I'm like, 2 hours and 58 minutes. But technically, 2 minutes, it's still 3 hours.
If you add the trailers on, you're still good.
Yeah, but
And there was like half an hour trailers.
It always is. Movie, so. But yeah, so I will say at a certain point in the movie, it felt like we were about to get to the end. I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then it takes a turn, and there's so much more development that needs to happen in order to make sense of, I want to say, it's weird, like the end of the second act, and then the third act, it gets so much longer until the end.
Yeah.
And I don't remember where, but I knew at one point I was like, wow, we've been here a while already, and I don't know how much longer we have.
Oh, sure.
And I wasn't like worried that I was gonna be like, oh boy, we're in it. Who knows how much more, but we're taking this journey. But I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
The way that the story played out, and then the characters and the backstories and everything, I really enjoyed it a lot. And I mean, the performances by a lot of the actors and actresses, actors and actress. I loved him. I loved Colin Farrell. Had no idea that was him, even though I knew it beforehand. There's moments where he himself peeks through as like you recognize it's Colin Farrell. And then I just had it too because I actually really liked this Gordon Jeffrey Wright.
Oh yeah.
I love this actor.
Of,
and
What If?
I love this actor. I mean, he's not in a lot of stuff anymore, and he's usually like a side character in a lot of movies. But I appreciate his take on Gordon, and him and Robert Pattinson had a lot of chemistry as being Gordon and Batman. Little do we know that there's some chemistry that goes a little pushes on the edge at some point.
But it gets a little hot and heavy.
But yeah, Zoe Kravitz, it's honestly who I went to go see the movie for, like what was really pushing me to see it, because I've been indifferent to Robert Pattinson as Batman, and it's like it was like a love or hate thing when they announced that it was him, and I was like, I don't really care. It looks cool, the suit looks cool, and it's just another guy playing Batman, and we'll see how it goes. But I went in just for Zoe and came out liking all of it. I liked all of them, and I had no idea oh my gosh, I forgot the name of the actor, but who plays the Riddler. I didn't
Oh, Paul
even
Dano.
I didn't
Yeah.
even know who the Riddler was who was gonna be him
Well,
in
they
this
did
movie.
a really good job in the marketing by not showing his face at
That
all.
and not really showing a lot, because like based off the trailers, I had different well, not different intentions, but I thought the movie was gonna play out differently than it did, but it was good.
Yeah.
Story had its surprises. Very build up to of what the main conflict was with the Riddler was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It did some storylines of the background of certain characters that I was not expecting at all, because like stuff we've seen recently with all of these characters, it feels like it's a long time coming, but it just takes so much to build up to the reveal. And this
Yeah.
movie does drop some stuff that I'm just like, oh, okay, we're going into this weird storyline, and it does drop it out of nowhere for some things, but then others I'm just like, I saw this coming either way, so
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I really did.
All right. Yeah, so I actually echo all your thoughts, honestly. There's nothing that really stands out to me about this movie about anything they did wrong. Like, there's things that like aren't perfect, but there's nothing that I think was like terrible about the movie. I think it was all good or better.
I will add on to this that I downright not hate but dislike what they decided to do with the Catwoman mask.
Yes, so that's something that I think is like that's a problem I have as well.
Yeah.
And like but I don't think that's something that like detracts from the movie.
No, and that's the funny thing is that it's such a small thing that it's not like, oh, they did so much detail for a lot of the other costumes and outfits that everyone wears, but then they just slap this on. It's not that big of a deal, but it's just it's like nitpicking at this point for like a good movie that is just like, oh, yeah, this was dumb.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, absolutely. I do recommend seeing this movie if you're on the fence.
I do.
It is 100% worth your time and money.
the
to go
soundtrack
check
the
this out.
soundtrack is
Watch it on a big
is
screen.
on point.
Yeah.
I
Beautiful soundtrack.
I've already listened. I've already tried to listen to the Catwoman theme and then the Batman. Like they do different interpretations of it throughout this movie, and they do each have their tone for that plays for a reason. Whether it's literally just introducing the Batman, or it's actually like weird detective mode and stuff. It's so interesting. It's like it's also another reason why I want to go see the movie again, to just like hear the difference in certain scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also like look for weird things I did not notice the first time. Then I was like, I'm gonna keep my eyes extra open this time for something I may have missed.
Yeah, Matt Reeves is a director that has a lot of attention to detail, and like you can tell looking through like
Yeah.
there's every shot is so full and so busy that it's like your eyes are darting around trying to take everything in before it like quickly moves to the next thing. And like another thing about this movie is, despite that it's 3 hours long, you would think that it's going to be a lot of like slow pace, like kind of like drawn out scenes, but it's not. It's almost every scene is like there and then it's over, and it's like you're on to the next thing, and there are so many different scenes in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I guess too there are some moments that are a lot slower than others,
Sure.
but I mean, it adds to the tension of what just happened or is about to happen.
But it's, I think it's just interesting that like if you told me there's a 3 hour long Batman movie, I would think that there's gonna be like 20 minutes of him sitting in the Batcave,
brooding,
just like looking at his cowl and like doing nothing, and a lot of music,
Yeah.
and just like, but it's not like that. It's like there's always something like moving the plot forward, and so thumbs up from me.
Thumbs up for me too.
All right, so from this point forward, we are going to be full spoilers. Everything's on the table, and let's get into it. Um,
The first scene was actually very interesting. It's weird because it does really set the tone, but then it tricks you a little bit because it adds in the like eerie, almost horror.
Yeah,
Kind of
so
thing.
the first thing you see is you see the big what you would assume watching the movie is probably Wayne Manor. You're looking at like the big family, you're looking at the little boy running around, you're like, oh, it must be young Bruce Wayne or something.
Given that you're in the view of somebody looking into the house with binoculars.
Yes. And
This
just
family
heavy
you're
breathing.
watching, real heavy breathing. Like this it bugged me so much. And it happens the whole movie. But you're the person technically spying on this family, and you can tell it's
Halloween.
it's Halloween
Because the kid's dressed up as a ninja.
Yeah.
The standard, when you're a boy in America, you get two choices for your costume. You either get Ghostface or ninja. There's two options.
Or pirate. That
Oh
was,
yeah,
that was the
pirate
other
is
thing
the
too.
acceptable third choice.
Yeah.
But essentially, he follows the family through the house, and you see him actually like watch them for a while, until eventually it gets even darker, and you get through phone call, through like exposition, as well as him watching the news, that he is the.
He's running for mayor, to continue to be mayor.
Yeah, so he's up for re-election, but he is the current mayor.
But he is running opposed.
Yes.
And he's on the phone with somebody saying like, we were promised that I was gonna have higher points than I actually do, and it's like it's
He's not happy with how the race is
suggesting
going.
too that they have their own way of like making sure the points are in his favor, rather than like playing it fairly, more or less. Yes. Yeah. And then while on the phone call, it's like really dark in this room too. Like the only light is really from like the moonlight from this really extravagant overhead window and the TV that's playing. And it just
he moves, a giant skylight in the room.
He moves from the middle of the room, and you just see somebody like they've been standing there for hours behind this man in a full mask and goggles. They give you a big
jump scare.
Yeah.
Where you see behind him, and it's just darkness, and as he passes, you get a glimpse of light, and you could see
Yeah, and it's just that's the thing too. It's like the way that the costume is for the Riddler is just like I had no idea that that's who it was.
Yeah, so going into this now with the full context of who the Riddler is, I really appreciate the costume. Going into this, I thought it was like one of my least favorite things about it. I was like, why? It's just, it looks like some generic army jacket, and it's like, oh no, there's a reason for that, but we'll get into that later.
It is, and it goes with the whole thing with this next scene where like he obviously murders the mayor and like sets them all up for his riddle. And for someone to find him, and it jumps to Bruce doing his own narration.
Well, I think going back to this scene, like the way he bashes his head open.
Oh,
I think it's really
there's
funny. There's
so much anger for it.
Going back to when Batman Returns came out, and they had Happy Meal toys.
Mm-hmm.
There was a bunch of angry parents who would wrote in and like stormed McDonald's offices because when they watched the movie, they gave these Happy Meal toys to the Penguin, and then he's like biting people's noses off, and there's like all this sexual tension in the movie, and they're like, why is this in Happy Meals? And it's like, can you imagine if this Batman was in Happy Meals? Like, Jesus. Like, Batman's gotten progressively more fucked up.
Yeah, it's just the thing is, it's like if they want stuff like that, it's like you have to sell both the villain and the hero, and then also to the supporting characters. So technically, the main cast usually gets a toy of some sort, or like some prop of theirs gets made and sold.
And it's so funny because the action figure for the Riddler comes with this tool that he bashes the guy's head open
I didn't know this.
And it's like, well, that's a weird thing to give to a kid, but all right.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so once this scene is over, it does cut to, we see more of Gotham City, and the narration kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see that Bruce is writing diaries and taking down everything he sees.
Yeah. And it's weird because it's being read like it's been a while. So he's like replaying it from the beginning where he says like it's October 31st.
Yeah.
And it's already at this point it's been 2 years that I've been doing this project. And it's interesting, like in the notebook while he's doing all this, it's showing him writing that he does call it a project.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not something he's already planned to do and keep doing. It's just something that he's like, I'm going to see how it goes and experiment as
he's testing to see what works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And given that it's 2 years, it's a lot of just anger, literally vengeance, hate the line, that's pushing him through a lot of this stuff.
Well, yeah, and so the big thing is right here, the signal goes up and you see it for the first time, and he says, now we have a signal. And so it's him and Gordon are working together now, and when people look up and see this, it actually does
instills fear,
put fear into them, and that's his greatest weapon.
Yeah, and that people are afraid of the shadows or the darkness nearby.
Yeah, so...
And it shows 3 different crimes happening, and each crime they do the crime, and then as soon as they have a chance to like look into the sky and see the sign, they turn and see like a pure pitch black like alley or
there's a lot
like
of shadows
secluded corner. Yeah, and it plays the theme of Batman for a second of each crime, and you could see that they falter a little bit at what could be there, and they think is probably there.
It's not worth them continuing the crime.
Yeah.
To the point where, actually, let's pause right here, because this is my biggest fucking issue with this movie, alright? This is problem number 1. And that's the fact that this, much like another million other Halloween movies out there, when people go trick-or-treating, nobody has real costumes. They like, what are they wearing? These weird like green ghoul things?
It's having worked at a store that did Halloween stuff. It's like they're the last minute people that are just like, you know what? I don't want to buy a full costume or have to deal with a full costume. Let me just buy a mask, buy some ears, buy something that I can put on and be like, I dressed up. This'll do. This'll pass as a costume right now. It really is.
I also would have really appreciated some like shitty Halloween versions of Batman villains that maybe he fought during these first 2 years.
Well, not only that, it would be really funny to just funny little like Easter eggs or just small things that show reference to other villains. Like, it might not be villains that are being portrayed in this film or like their future, but just like the more obscure,
the ones that aren't actually going to get a whole movie.
Yeah, but that would have been fun. Instead, it's like all these like weird, ghoulish like pumpkin heads and bones. It was really weird. Skeletons.
On top of that, it didn't look like it was like some like, oh, we bought it at like the dollar store kind of thing. Like, it looked like a high tech, like very not high tech, but like a very fancy mask that this man.
Yeah,
was
like it was
wearing
actually like sculpted pretty
hold
well.
Up this store.
Yeah,
but
even too that is just pouring. This whole movie, is
oh yeah,
there's so much rain.
I mean, California is going through a drought, but let me tell you, Gotham not so lucky.
Oh my god.
It's like torrential downpours constantly. But anyway, so Bruce is kind of walking through the streets. Then we cut to all these crimes, and then let's catch up to the point where so we cut to the train. And on the train, there's a bunch of ghoul-faced hooligans. Okay.
It's like a small gang.
Okay, here's the thing, all right?
Doing like a weird initiation.
There's 3 possibilities here. And I want to know which one you think it is. Number 1, these are all their Halloween costumes. They're all together. They got a theme, right? They're all the Skull Boys for Halloween. Option number 2, the Skull Boys, it's a real gang in Gotham. And they're like, this is just what we do. We dress up like this 24/7, all year round, 365. That's what they do. Or, number 3, Did they look vaguely Jokerish, and are these the Joker boys?
I didn't think about that.
White
But to be
face.
honest, I think it's a little bit a mix of both one and two. Like they just painted their faces because it's Halloween, but as far as like I don't know, they all had a varying age range to not to be people that just hang out. So it felt more like a gang of literally doing like a weird initiation for who looked like he could have been the youngest.
Yeah, so
And really pushing and peer pressuring him into being like, yeah, beat this guy up and you can hang with us, kind of thing.
the youngest member does look familiar for any DC
Yeah,
fans because he is Tim Drake from the latest season of Titans.
Titans, yeah.
And,
it was a very interesting choice to have him and then literally be the one to be the last one standing and just looking at Batman and like the weird intimidation that happens in this scene, and he hesitates a little bit and then just runs.
Yeah, so I mean, cutting way before that.
I know. It's just like the first actual like fight scene of this movie, and it is great. It is so brutal, and like you can see that he holds no restraint when kicking these guys' butts.
See, that's half true, but at the same time, this is the first Batman in any movie we've ever had that does show restraint, and he's making sure that he doesn't kill anyone.
Yeah,
Because...
I mean, as far as that, as like not killing someone, but the punches are.
Oh yeah, no, he's brutal. Don't get me wrong.
Woof.
But at the same time, like, I really appreciated their attention to detail and the fact that, like, whenever someone went over a railing, they had a zip tie to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whenever someone went down, like, you made sure that their arm is still moving, they're still breathing. Like, Batman never takes life in this, as opposed to in the Burton movies when he's, like, literally, he's got guns on the Batmobile. Or in Zack Snyder's Batman when he just runs over people in flaming wrecks. But it's like, that never happens in this movie, and I appreciate that. But essentially, after he beats the living crap out of them, he gets back on his bike and heads back into Gotham towards Wayne Tower. But instead of going into Wayne Tower, he dips into the subways below. And let me tell you, this man has been riding motorcycles for a long time because he can ride like a pro. He's taking turns that like terrified me.
Tight turns, and then like the end to get to the cave or the hideaway is like these narrow stairs, and
oh my God, he's just shooting down the stairs. Yeah. And I'm also like, but then how do you get out? Because you're getting
that's gotta
down
be
these
rough.
Stairs.
Unless there's a totally different entrance that's easier to get out.
Yeah.
Into the city or up to the city from where he is. And
to the point that like he has like a ramp where he parks and he doesn't even slow down approaching. He just like jets straight there and then just cuts a turn. And he's like, all right, I'm here. And we see a giant tarp where he's like building the Batmobile still. I don't know if he's ever used the Batmobile in this continuity.
Yeah, who knows?
I think the motorcycle is his main thing. I think the car's like new, especially with what he has trouble with.
It's like the motorcycle isn't built to have him completely in the costume, because like he's in it for that whole thing, but while being on the bike, it's like he has this huge backpack, which I assume is holding all of the costume and its accessories in.
Yeah, you gotta wonder how much that costume weighs because he brings it everywhere.
I would imagine it's so heavy.
But then once he settles down,
I think we skipped a little bit. He actually meets Gordon at the crime scene.
Oh, yes. Very true. Very true.
Meets Gordon at the crime scene. Gordon is actually leading him into the house.
That's what
where they find him.
Really up for.
Yes.
The murder of the
And
mayor.
all the other cops are looking at Gordon and him like, what the heck is he doing here? It's like, he's not one of us. He shouldn't be a part of this. And Gordon is just like, how else are we going to figure this out? We need help.
Yeah.
This is something out of the norm, and it's not until you actually get in and you see that this man that was murdered, the mayor, uh, has his full head duct taped, and then on it it says "No more lies," and then also too, his left hand is missing his thumb, and there's a card attached to his chest that says "To the Batman."
Yeah.
And it's even more reason to be like, yeah, I don't think regular cops are going to be able to solve something like this because I get that they deal with murders and a ton of crimes on the daily basis, but maybe not something as extravagant as how this crime scene looks and how brutal it was as well, because they do say that he was hit multiple times and very hard with one object.
But he also lost a lot of blood. How?
Wasn't it because of the thumb?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
through his
And then they
thumb.
say too that he was alive when the thumb was taken. And so it's just like, oh, this man suffered.
Oh yeah, no,
And
it
he
was not fun.
they don't say exactly how he died, but I would imagine that we are shown that the duct tape gets put on before, like when he gets onto the
Yeah,
body
that's the
after
first
being
thing he
hit.
does, yeah.
And it's like, this man probably suffocated while like suffering this pain at the same time.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
unable to scream.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this whole time Bruce has he's just looking at everything and not really saying anything to anyone, and really just walking around, and it almost seems like he's finding stuff that the team hasn't seen yet, because
yeah, he's noticing things.
Yeah.
Footprints.
he noticed the scratch which on the floor, which probably is where the thumb was like set and just torn right through.
Yeah.
And then one of the photographers that are there, they're like, oh, I
Then-
didn't see
then
that,
they
and then
start-
sets a thing and takes a picture.
Yeah.
And he does like maybe two other things, but I don't really remember what they are. And it's the same thing. People are just like following him a little bit to be like, I didn't see this, let me do it now before we don't get it.
Do you remember what the riddle is that? On the card?
Ooh, it's like, it's like, what does a, oh, no, I don't. I know it's like, what is a dead man? No, I don't remember.
I believe it's what do liars do when they're dead?
That is what it
And
is. Yeah,
They lie still.
they lie still.
And Bruce just instantly figures this out just
Mm-hmm.
looking at it. And so because of that, because the riddle is it has like corresponding
Symbols.
characters, and there's like a cipher.
Yeah.
And so he uses that to, well, eventually he works with Alfred.
Yeah, this is what we jumped to a little
Yeah.
too early, which is where he goes back to the Batcave and is greeted. He starts working on it, and then Alfred comes in and pretty much tells him like, "Hey, you've been out all night. You need to go get ready. We got stuff to do." And Bruce is just like, "I don't want to do that. I don't want to deal with any of that." It's like, I don't
He's just
care.
like, oh, we have investors coming over. And then he's like, oh, why are you having them come over? And he's like, well, I know I couldn't get you to go to them, so
I'm
they're
there.
going to have to come to you.
Gotta keep doing business somehow. It's like, we don't.
Yeah, and he literally tells Bruce, like, if you continue going down the path you're going down, you're not going to have anything left.
Mhm.
Bruce's like, I don't even care. I don't even want the money.
That's not the end goal, and it's not what I'm not what I'm doing this all for.
And so Alfred asks him, do you not care about your family's legacy? And he's like, this
Is my
family's
legacy. It's like it's like weirdly doing justice for the city is all that matters to him right now, instead of like trying to keep technically what his dad and his mom were doing for the city and all that. And he does happen to figure out a little bit of the note that was given, but I don't actually remember what happens next, because it's actually later that he meets with Alfred. Oh no, it is. He leaves, and you kind of just see like it shows his back and how scarred he is, and how he still like how the makeup is on his face after having the mask on and everything.
Yeah.
And during it goes to Alfred, and he's working on the cipher.
It's really funny. There's a great scene in Batman v Superman where it's like a nightmare sequence, and so Batman's all tied up in like a sexy pose, and he's
Could already tell the moment when you just go like this.
and Superman slowly approaches him, and Batman's looking all tough, right? And he's got the face paint all over him underneath the cowl, and then Clark reaches over and he rips over the mask, and then he's beautiful underneath. There's no more makeup. It's like what happened between those 2 seconds? And it's like, oh, it's
the
good
mask
to see that
wipes it off.
this version realizes that that's not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's like it's under there, and it's gonna stay under there. But yeah, it does lead to you go back to Alfred, and he's figured out more than what Bruce had originally, and then Bruce comes in and he just there's fruit for him for breakfast. Just eat something.
Yes,
and I think at this point Alfred already knows he's gonna just not eat. Like that's why he gives him just like a small bowl of fruit rather than like a very big spread on the table.
Well, it's also here we realize that it's not just Alfred. We also have a second caretaker. Yes.
Yeah,
and,
I actually really forgot about her.
Yes, it's an interesting choice to bring her in because she doesn't necessarily contribute anything to the plot other than the phone call.
Yeah.
But maybe they're gonna do something with her later. I don't know. It's
Who knows?
interesting.
I mean, we'll see.
Or I mean, maybe they just wanted to make it seem like it was just Bruce and Alfred his entire life.
Yeah, well, it serves a purpose for later, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then they're still figuring out the cipher, and then Bruce points out, like, "Oh, how'd you get all these other letters when they weren't there in the first place?" And he's like, "Oh, I saw the double symbols next to each other, and I figured those would be the same, and then I just kept going from there and slowly figured out certain letters, and then at some point
Bruce realizes,
it weirdly
you're
clicks
thinking
like
too hard.
It clicks for him where it's like, what if it's only the ones that we were given that are going to tell us what it's going to be?
Yeah. So
and then they move to the bat cave for the computer and start filling in all the symbols that they were given already with letters.
Yes.
And then from there they just start taking the symbols out, and it eventually reveals the word drive.
Mm-hmm.
And the next scene is Bruce and Gordon in the mayor's garage, which weirdly enough, he has like 10 cars, 10 really fancy cars.
Yeah, if not more.
Yeah,
like,
it's just like,
garage.
how the heck does the mayor have this? And it's also like, he lived in a really nice house.
Yeah.
With a lot of nice stuff. And they go through the garage, and then at some point, one of the cars has bloody pliers in the front tire. And they take him out and look into the car, and Bruce is like really looking, and Gordon at the time was just like, what are you looking for? Like, I don't see anything out of the ordinary. And I didn't think about it, but Bruce already knows what he's looking for because he already put it together that it was like, drive, what's missing? That flippin' thumb.
Yeah.
It's just like, real quick, I'm looking for a USB drive in this car.
No.
And
you're looking for a thumb drive.
I know, but I don't even remember. Is
says
that really what it says? Okay. And it's like he just opens the middle console. Weird that you wouldn't think to look there in the first place, because he's like looking through the window and then right by the
You just gotta
seat.
be thorough. You just gotta go in and cover your
And
tracks.
he takes it out, and then they put it into Gordon's computer, and that's when he brings up the thumb, and it's like it probably has a scanner on it, the thumb drive, and Gordon's just like, you better not.
Gordon tries to open it, and he's like, it's encrypted. Yeah. And then so Bruce just pops open the little thumb scanner to pop the thumb on.
Yep.
So you gotta put the thumb drive and the thumb with the
poor
thumb
Gordon.
scanner.
You could tell he's super grossed out and like, why does it gotta be this way? Why do this to me? And yeah, thumb's gotta be grabbed and put onto that thumb drive to be scanned and unlock the contents of it.
Yeah, so a bunch of photos start popping up of a young blonde woman who looks beat to shit. And then there's a man with her, and it happens to be the mayor. And so they're like, oh shit.
And also the penguin.
What's going on with that? Yes, so the penguin is in the back of the photos. And then all of a sudden, email notifications start popping up, and it's to
like
Gotham
tons.
Gazette, it's to the news.
It's all the newspapers and news channels. And it's just like, oh boy,
Gordon's email.
Gordon, to the people that are receiving it, it looks like just inside information that Gordon is leaking on purpose, because no one knows about this yet. And it's just... chaos is being ensued.
Yeah.
And it adds to the connection of where the pictures are taken in front of, and it's the Iceberg Lounge, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it ends up being like the club that deals go down between like not so how do I want to say that?
Favorable clientele.
Yes. And then the dirty cops and stuff. It's not hidden well that it's like people who are in a position of power that shouldn't be going here are going here. And the next is we go to the club, and Bruce goes in full Batman gear and shows up right at the front door
and just knocks on that door.
Yeah. And this I didn't get this connection until you told me that it's what Tweedledee.
Yeah, so what I assume is Tweedledee and Tweedledum, which are like two henchmen in the Marvel universe.
They just happen to be twins and real dumb.
Yeah.
But
they're usually like even bigger and uglier than this, but this is a good starting point for them.
It is, and it's also really funny too because they're also from Teen Wolf.
Yes, yeah, it's the twins from Teen Wolf. The ones that merge into one big old wolf. Yeah, so it was interesting to see them there. Yeah, so essentially he's like, I want to talk to Penguin. And then he shuts the door on him, and when he reopens it, the second twin is there.
They're like, what do we do here? I need you to help me make this decision. I can't do it by myself. And then, oh man, they both get their butts beat. And it's quick.
Bruce just tears through the club, Sifu style.
Yeah, and it's like, this whole part is very Sifu because he just starts going through in order to find Penguin.
Yeah, he tears through everyone in this club until the point that he actually comes face to face with Penguin, and then Penguin essentially just
nonchalant about it too. It's like, what?
He's like,
don't worry about it. Let's go talk right now in my office.
He's like,
we don't got to do all this.
I'm just a businessman. I'm. What do you think? This is some kind of weird like gang shit? No. We're gonna have a conversation. Sit down in my office. It'll be great. And so once they actually do go back to his office, though, Penguin is completely unhelpful. And he's just like, I never seen the broad. No, I don't know anything about this shit. Oh, well, I don't know.
It's weirdly convincing, but you can tell that Bruce is just like, oh my God, I know you know something, and I'm going to have to force it out of you, whether you like it or not.
Yes.
And it's like, I don't follow no rules. And you're right in that line of me just beating you.
And then moving around in the club is one Selena Kyle.
Yep.
Who happens to be running drugs for the Penguin, possibly, but also is never officially confirmed that's exactly what she's doing.
Yeah.
But she brings in drugs, and he gives her money, and then she leaves.
Her position in this club, or her working here, is very obscure. It's just like she comes and goes whenever she wants, and she can easily get in anywhere. But I also will add this in that I physically gasped when they showed her. I was just like, oh my God, this woman.
It's beautiful.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Ugh.
You're not wrong.
I love literally every single look she has in this movie is gorgeous.
Yeah, she's got some good
and it's just like, it's one of the reasons why I want to still go watch it. I'm just like,
yeah,
ma'am, why?
Well, essentially what happens is Bruce feels the exact same way, and he's like, ma'am, why? And so he
Oh
decides
yeah,
to hop on
he's
his motorcycle
really quickly like.
and follow her all the way across town to her little horrible little
Yeah,
apartment.
this was weird too.
And
He just watches the whole thing like play out, where like her friend is there, who is the girl from the photos, and she's like trying to help her calm down and help her. And then after the little conversation,
where are you going?
oh my gosh, yeah,
you want to take
heaviest
me to the
accent you would
place?
never know. And it just goes to Selena like comforting her and telling her, okay, let me deal with this and I'll be right back. And then it goes to her in her room, entirely watches her undress, and she's just literally in underwear and a really small t-shirt tank top. And it's just next thing you know, she's putting on this bodysuit, skin tight leather, and it's
Clearly custom made.
It's all the way, yeah.
Clearly heavily detailed, and then she puts on a beanie.
It's
for
fit
her
to
mask.
a T, and then
And she
all of a
cuts the
sudden
eyeballs,
it's just
stuff.
the mask pullover, and then the little like corners of like a bag almost for the
It
the
looks
hat,
like she bought
and then
a
just
beanie at Hot Topic.
it's
that had
literally
cat
like
ears.
that, yeah.
And I'm just like,
Half her nose, and then most all her eyes and eyebrow.
and okay, if you can go two directions with this, you either could have said, okay,
I could
she's just
literally cut one of my beanies right now.
yeah,
I ain't
yeah.
gonna do it, but
I mean,
I
you
could.
They could have taken one
Easily
direction with the character,
demonstrate.
and if they wanted to keep that sort of look for the cowl, they should have made the outfit look a little more tattered, a little more thrown together, a little more like obvious sew markings, maybe throwback to
Yeah.
the original Catwoman. Well, the Returns Catwoman, anyway. But instead, they made this beautiful bodysuit that clearly looks like it was made by like a
Like she's been
billion-dollar
doing this for a
designer.
while. She's been
And
doing this for a
then
while.
This
But the mask
that
does not
looks like-
matter.
I don't know. And like it bothered me even more later on because like we'll get to that later. I'm not even gonna get into it right now. Anyway, the point is that she's all geared up as Catwoman and she's ready to bow with the bow, you know? She's ready to get down, ready to get busy, ready to go to Meow Town.
Yeah, but the only thing is that she ends up going to the mayor's, like that room we were in
Yes.
the first scene.
So she drops down through a skylight and she finds the safe immediately and she does her Catwoman magic.
It's so elegant too.
And then
How she
Bruce
breaks
is
into
like,
the safe.
that was pretty cool. And she's like, and then they fight and they do their little sexy dance. And then a guard comes in and then Bruce grabs her tightly. And then she moans
Yeah,
a little as
back
she's
to
like
his
holding
chest.
him. And it's like
And
very...
like mouth over mouth. Oh, excuse me. Hand over her mouth, and you can just see the two of them just breathing real hard against each other.
She goes
While this-
from
how this
I'm not into this to being like I'm
yeah,
kind of
and it's
into
like
this.
how this police officer doesn't hear them like
Yeah, it's in like a like silent room, and they're just like
yeah, and it's just like the only thing that could make me think too. It's like this man did not even look that hard because they were tossing each other around hard. They were hitting everything in that room. You could hear them stomping. I mean, Selena was kicking everything and flipping, and then yeah, it's like they toss each other like full body strength, just get off me.
It's also security at a place where someone died like last night. Like
Yeah.
you would think that like really that's the time you'd want to be
It's-
like, all right, is they gonna return
The span
here?
of this movie happens in maybe a week, 5 days. something like that.
sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I remember by the end of the movie it says like November 6th or 4th. It's timeline is
Interesting. I
somewhere
didn't
in
even
there.
notice that at the
It's
end.
yeah, it says he says November. So
okay.
it's a couple of days.
later.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, so she breaks into the safe that's there, and it's revealed that the mayor actually took the blonde girl's passport because it seems like he told her something, and in exchange he's gonna make sure she doesn't leave. Like in a sense she's his prisoner.
Yeah.
And here we were under the impression that he was having an affair with this girl, and especially being at the bar the way that they were. And
Yeah.
the other secret was that he had a mistress as well as beating this mistress. And it's just like, oh, this is not looking good. I mean, it's still not looking good. Either way, I don't know if this is worse or better. That he literally like has somebody being like, you are not leaving until I say you can leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just like, oh no. But then they weirdly, by the end of the scene, they have this weird like agreement to be like, we'll work together, and
Not even that yet.
try and figure this out.
They don't decide to work together until the next scene. Here, Bruce is just like, show me what's going on, and so she just brings she brings Batman back to her apartment, but then the whole thing is wrecked.
Yeah.
And so
Friend is missing.
Things are moving.
Her stuff is stolen.
Books are on the ground. Cats are totally A-okay and not drinking the milk that's totally out there. Then Selena Kyle reaches in for milk that who knows how long this fridge has been open. Probably is spoiled, but starts drinking that shit anyway.
Yeah,
kind of a weird choice.
the time for some of the sequences is like, it could be an hour, it could be like 5.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it's like, it's nighttime for like 40 hours a night in Gotham, so that doesn't really contribute to anything. But essentially, after another conversation, she's like, well, I'm going to do anything it takes to find my friend. And so Bruce is like, well, that's your motivation. You're going to help me. And she's like, all right, I guess I'm helping you. And so they decide to work together. Mm-hmm. And he's going to send her back into the club.
Yeah.
And
do some reconnaissance on the club within the club.
Yeah, so there's a secret club below, which is 33 below. Mm-hmm. But before going back, the scene that we kind of skipped was when Bruce comes back from his first night patrolling. Mm-hmm. He takes out his contact lenses, which actually have
tech
built-in cameras that record everything he sees for the entire night.
Who knows how he got these?
And he can just,
who?
Gotham Wayne R&D, right?
Yeah.
But we never meet a Lucius Fox here. We don't meet like any like developers. So is he doing it himself? Well,
who knows?
We have no idea. Like, how do you learn how to fight in this universe?
Yeah,
we have no idea.
And it's like, other than that, he does give them to her to wear, and you can tell her discomfort with them because for the next like maybe like minute, she's talking to him being like, no one can see these, they're not as noticeable. Are they as noticeable as I think they are?
Yeah.
And he's trying to convince her like, no one will know that you have these, and they're easy to use, and just don't think about it.
And they're pulling from some kind of database because as she looks at each person, she's seeing their name and title. And it's a bunch of off-duty cops, government officials,
DA's office,
like all kinds of.
And it's just like, wow,
people.
There's a lot of people down here that are just drinking and doing drugs, and they're literally telling secrets they shouldn't be telling, because that's where Selena comes. That's where Selena meets the head of the DA's office.
Yes.
And he is wasted. Like, he really quickly too like takes a liking to Selena, and all Selena is just like, the more that I keep doing this, the more it's gonna confuse this man, and he's definitely gonna tell me stuff I shouldn't be knowing. And he does, and it ends up being that one of the cases that they were working on for Falcone.
Either Falcone or Falcone, depending on the scene.
The whole movie is said differently or referred to differently.
Yes.
And that there was like a huge drug bust by the mayor that was supported by a rat. And it's like everyone's protecting this person.
They took out the Maroney family.
Yeah.
Which was the biggest bust that GCPD had ever done.
Yeah.
But now we slowly get teased in this moment, but like much more later, that there's something wrong with that. It's not quite what it seems. And there's more to all the crime in the city than meets the eye. Mm-hmm. And so she spends some time with him. She kind of pulls out a lot of information. But then the girl to her left, or to his left, is like, oh, but don't you know about Anita or Anya or
it's something
Ivanka
like that.
Or
it ends up being about her friend. And then the other girl opposite of the DA is just like, we shouldn't be talking about this, and then leaves him like, I'm gonna go get more drinks, and let's change the subject. And Selena is quick to be like, what, why are we avoiding this? and like pursues this girl, and ends up like this girl ends up being one of the workers there, and she knows something about like why we shouldn't be talking about this. And Selena is persistent on being like, have you seen her? Have you heard from her? Do you know what happened with her? I
Yeah.
need to know. And she's like, no, you don't. I'm not going to tell you anything because it's not worth it. And it's as they're walking towards the front, and who comes in is like Falcone's like right hand like bodyguard kind of dude, and tells her like, hey, I haven't seen you around, it'd be nice to have you back again. And she's
Wait,
like,
his body? No, that
isn't it? I don't remember it actually being Falcone.
No, it is him.
Or is it
because
is
what he does is he goes out and he like reaches on her chin and he's like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while. And Bruce is like, what's your relationship with him?
Don't worry about it.
So that was the
Yeah, it's just like they have the weird private moment of talking back and forth to each other in the bathroom, and Bruce is being insistent on like, I need to know why you know him in the way that he referred to, and she's like, don't worry about it. It's not what you think.
Yeah, it's none of your business.
It isn't something I want to talk about. And he keeps going, and then she's just like, I'm done. I can't do this, and just like
takes out the car.
yeah, like with her flipping long nails. I'm just like, how do you do this? How did you do that so easy? And it was like,
also,
man,
did you keep those? Did you ever give those back? Like,
yeah,
we
it was
never
just
got
like,
any information on
ugh.
that,
It was
but-
like the way she takes him out too. It's just like she just tossed him. I'm like, somebody about to get real lucky about finding these things, and it's also just like, I don't know if they would actually work after the fact, right? It's
like
weird
because you would need Bruce's computer, so like they would just be weird looking contacts.
Yeah, and so it does end up like
Also,
you
if
don't know what happens with Selena.
you probably shouldn't put in contacts you found on the bathroom floor.
Yeah,
if you
it's
just
got
found
them. You never know.
even if
You
they're cool
never
looking.
know,
I don't know.
honestly. But yeah, it does end up being. You don't hear from Selena anymore. Excuse me. And then Bruce is still like there. Yeah, it is that he's nearby, but he can already see that Selena is trying to leave. And the DA actually follows her out and is just like, hey, do you want to ride? I'm just right here.
Yeah, but
it'll
this
be
is another
easy.
moment where we get horror vibes where it's like you keep seeing that like someone's seeing them from.
Oh yeah, you're being shown a different view that isn't Bruce.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh,
And so
we are the one that's about to kill or set them up to be killed.
But they
in a
make
minute.
it look like they're trying to kill Selena at first, and then it's clear that they're actually there for the DA.
Unfortunately, I did also realize that the whole rat thing, we did miss out on the chief of police did get killed. He was the second
Yes.
victim.
Oh my God. Yeah, we
Yeah.
totally passed by.
It's because it happens really quickly, and they don't dive much into it.
Yeah.
But
no.
yeah, that's how we find out the whole rat thing. And it's the same thing. He's actually in like a Saw looking
rat contraption.
yeah, it's weird. And like
It also
he
reminded
was
me of Too
he
Fast,
was
Too Furious.
he was poisoned with arsenic, and pretty much saying that like, yeah, he isn't who he said he isn't who he's supposed to be as far as like leading the police
Yeah.
the right way or the correct way that he's supposed to be doing it.
Mhm.
And it's the same way they find him. It's more like he's found, but the scene with Gordon and Bruce is actually in the coroner's office.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like you just see the contraption that was made to hold him in. You don't actually see the body, but they give Bruce to the Batman letter, and I don't remember what's on this, but
Well, no,
it does have like
they
a
don't. They
secret.
don't give him the letter.
He finds it. He finds it in one
there's-
of the.
So it seems like there's rats that are shrieking at him, and they're like, "That rat doesn't like you." Like, it's not a rat, and you see it's a bat, and then
No, that's at the end.
that's where. But the letters
That's
above
at the
the
end.
bat.
That's at the end. That's at the end.
The end of what? This scene?
No, that's at the end of the movie. When they're in the apartment, you're making me do this. When they're in the apartment already, and like looking at all this stuff in the apartment.
You're right.
And
you're
they're
right.
just like, "What is that noise?"
You're right.
Yes,
That's what I'm
there are
thinking of.
no
That's what I'm thinking of.
rats. There
That's
are
what I'm
no
thinking of.
rats in this in this trap or whatever
You're right.
anymore.
That's what I'm thinking of.
And it's just like it just shows it's a rat maze.
Yes.
And it was meant for like the rats to really work through to get to him. Like it was gonna have an anticipation for him of like, how do I get out of this before they get to me?
Yeah, it's
and
supposed
like
to like
really
make
kill
him
him.
really like
And
get his
in
elevated heart rate.
the rat maze, it has all the same symbols and stuff, but in like an invisible ink of some sort, because he's doing the whole UV light all over it.
Yeah.
And then he opens up the contraption somewhere on the bottom, and it pops out, and it's
Well, he
just
presses the button that has a question mark on
yeah.
it.
It's just like, how else someone didn't realize
The
that
most obvious
yeah.
part, yeah.
And so he opens it, and it's just another letter to him, and it's just insinuating that there's more to the story, and that someone you have to bring the rat to light, kind of thing.
Yeah, bring
Yeah.
the rat into the light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we go fast forward that whole sequence, and the DA is offering Selena a ride, and Selena is just like, nope, I'm fed up with what happened tonight. I'm gonna do my own thing.
There's like a long pause to make it seem like she's thinking about it, but then she's like, taxi.
It's really weird. But then it does show the DA going into his car, and then still being drunk, he's slow to realize the head seat in his passenger
He's just
seat.
sitting on the ground.
And it's just like, weird. And the Riddler actually gives him a chance to like turn and fully look and recognize what is about to happen.
Yeah.
But it's just like, he's too drunk to even fight what's about to happen.
And then
it's just
the moment before he bashes his head in, it cuts to above the car, and then you see the rail car like driving over, and so you hear that instead of the noise that would have been his head exploding.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It's actually just the machinery being put onto him. And then the next scene is actually Bruce getting ready with Alfred to go to the memorial for the mayor. And it's weird to think, too, that you're shown here that Bruce is actually really reclusive. Like, just as reclusive as Falcone, sorry.
So this is the problem I have with it. He is like a recluse, and so people are like, oh yeah, he never shows his face, he never makes any appearances. But literally the moment anyone ever sees him, they're like, oh, it's Bruce Wayne! Oh my, it's Bruce Wayne!
Yeah.
And even the Penguin, he's like, Falcone, you don't know who this guy is? It's Bruce Wayne.
I don't...
Like, how do they all know what he looks like?
Penguin doesn't say that to him. It's like the bodyguards, because they are like, hey, watch what you're doing. You realize who you're walking up to, and then that's when it's just like, hey, you know who this is, right? It's all right.
Well, and it's the great scene that the leg comes out first, and it's the same Selena Kyle boots, and so Bruce is like rushing up to go see Selena, and he's like gonna confront her as Bruce Wayne for some reason.
Yeah.
But then she turns around, and it's not Selena Kyle.
It's a totally different woman.
It's just some other woman.
Which is really interesting. It's just like, Bruce, why did you think she's the only one with those boots?
Because he has an obsessive personality type that like sees something and...
Yeah, but it's really interesting. Like, you could tell this whole scene of like him walking into the church or wherever this memorial is being held, that people are slowly recognizing who he is, even though it's just like randoms talking to him. And then out of nowhere, after a couple of people recognizing who he is, and he just keeps moving in, the competitor to the mayor, Miss Real, I don't remember her first name, really quick to talk business.
I keep wanting to call her Rio, but that's the name of Miles'
really
mom.
quick. She's just, sir, you need to do more with your money,
Wait.
and I got a plan for you.
Yes,
and
that
we're
is
gonna
true.
talk about it.
But we can talk about the scene before this, because this is something that I haven't seen anyone talk about, and what I think is clearly Joe Chill, the guy who... Do you know who Joe Chill is?
No.
So Joe Chill is the man who murders Bruce Wayne's parents.
Okay.
And...
Yeah.
And he's just some low-life loser who gets paid to off the Waynes.
Yeah.
And then I think that's what that scene is, where he's like talking to himself, like that's what they deserved anyway. And then he realizes that Bruce Wayne is next to him, and he kind of recognizes him because he was the kid. And I think in this world they purposely keep it ambiguous. It could have been Maroni, it could have been Falcone, it could have been this Joe Chill guy.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter because there's so much fucking corruption everywhere that like, you're never really
going to be able to. It could have came from anywhere. It's just depending on who you talk to, what version of the truth you're going to get. And it's really interesting because that does end up happening later. But yeah.
But yes, then what's her name again? The mayor candidate?
Real.
So anyway, so she ambushes Bruce, and she's like, "Hey, I know your parents did a lot for this city, and you're not doing anything for this city, so you need to spend more of your money for this city. Okay, I'm gonna pay my respect. You stay
right here, and I'll come back, and we'll keep talking,
and then you can give me your money." And he's like, "No."
And it's not even that long. Like Bruce just like literally just the scene pans the upper part of this building on the inside, and the next thing you know, you just hear a ruckus happening outside, and it's just people screaming and yelling, and the next thing you know, there's he sees the Riddler, and it's just the only person, the only person standing still while everyone else is like moving at the top, like trying to see outside what's happening. And like it's like a weird moment of I guess a realization of like, why would somebody just be so still like that? Yeah. And then come to observe something like this here, and then it just goes to the car crashing straight in through the front doors.
Yes.
And everyone just spreading to not get hit, and then Bruce just turns and realizes the family is literally in the way of the car coming in,
and he dives for young Dick Grayson.
Oh my god,
Dick Grayson is...
this kid better have some importance because they show him so much,
and when he looks
like
down
staring
and Jason
at
Todd
each
looks
other
up at him, he knows that Tim Drake will be okay. This kid's got to be someone. He's got to be someone.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense why they show him so many times.
It does go. He saves him. No one really gets hurt, and then all the police officers come in and hold whoever's in the car at gunpoint, telling him to come out. And it's revealed. Just
screaming at him, "Oh, get out of the car!
Put your hands up," and all that. And it's just like. This car is covered in graffiti. It's saying like no more lies. Everything along those lines is like corruption, dirty, and it ends up being the DA, and he has duct tape over his mouth, just his mouth at this point, and this again saw-like contraption around his neck.
Big old collar.
Yeah, and ends up being a bomb right in the front with a timer, and then his hand, he has a phone duct tape to it, and it's just ringing the whole time.
Yeah.
And at this point, someone just yells. It takes one person to just yell out, "He has a bomb," and everyone just starts going crazy. And it's just Gordon and a few of the other officers that are just like, "We need to get everyone out now." And Bruce is just there, like staring as people are just running around him. And it just cuts to the building is empty now. Oh God, this poor man. The DA is literally just sitting so miserably in this chair while they have the
bomb retrieval robot that
just
goes
coming
in there.
up to him so slowly and so quietly, and then it's just the camera just right in his face,
and it just says "meet more," and he's like, "My one true friend."
And then I do appreciate the way Bruce comes into this scene as Batman, because it plays on that whole...
from the shadows.
Yeah, he enters from the shadows, and it's just like the way that the movie teased him coming out of for the different crimes that were happening, and it's really cool, but it's also really terrifying because the DA has no idea like why he's coming towards him or if he's actually gonna help him.
That
it's
he
just
got
like
into the building. He's like, how did he get in here? What is going on?
It's like the same thing too. Everyone outside is just like, how the heck did he get in there? Wasn't secure? And then Gordon too is just like, you got me. I don't know how he's in there. And he just starts looking through, like grabbing the card off the guy's chest and reading it, and all it says is like, I'm looking forward to talking or something, or revealing, to reveal something. And the inside just says answer. And the phone has been ringing this whole time.
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating hearing it ring.
It really is.
Non-stop.
It was annoying. And I get it too, like in that sense, it's like, even if you were to answer, you have no idea if that was a detonator, or it's going to start. Yeah, it's going to start the timer. And as soon as Bruce answers, it's the Riddler, and being like, I've been looking forward to this, and I have some stuff to talk to you about. We have to discuss not the end game, but like why the DA is the target at the moment. And he talks to Bruce Batman like as a weird like adversary or ally in this moment, and the DA just starts like pleading, like, please don't hurt me, I can do whatever you need, whatever you want. And it triggers the Riddler, and he yells at him, and it's like, you could tell with just this alone how much power the Riddler already has over this man, with just the fear that he's already instilled in him from already the night before, and this whole moment that's happening in front of us. And he shuts up so fast.
Everyone in this movie uses fear. That's like their main thing.
And it jumps to really quickly being, I'll give you 3 riddles, and if you can give me the answer that I'm looking for, you'll be free to go. The bomb, I'll give you, it won't detonate, and I'll give you the combination to take it off. And he's like, sure, easy enough, I can do it. I agree. Let's get to it. And it's like a minute, right?
Yeah.
That the timer is on there, and I hated these first 2 answers very quickly, and I already knew it was coming. But it's like the first question, if you want to go from there.
Oh my god, no, I can't do the question. What is the question?
It goes to the what is, oh my god, I was gonna say what is blind. It's the vengeance thing.
Yeah.
Or justice. It's justice.
Yeah, so
I keep it's funny because it is in the trailer so much.
It's so familiar, but I can't remember the words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's the different types of justice that happens, or like the way that it's explained.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first question. The second one, I really don't remember either.
He asked him, what's the cost?
Oh, no, what is his cost? Like, what is he willing?
Yeah.
What will pay him off? And it was such a disappointing number, to be perfectly honest. It was like $10,000.
$10,000 a month.
Yeah.
And then, but it's also plus more, and then he's like, but you didn't ask for those factors, so I'm not going to tell you. And then the third question is, who was the rat?
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, that's the one that I can't say. And then Bruce is like, fucking just say it.
He's like, why does it matter? You could just say it and we're done here. And he's like, no, it's like, as soon as I'm a dead man either way. And it's like, not revealing who it is, I'm protecting my family, I'm protecting people that are a part of this. I'm not gonna do it. And at this point, it's a little longer than is necessary, because it's like he had like a good 20 seconds for the last question, and it's like the realization hits quick. It's probably like a second or 2 later, and it's just that argument for the next 18 seconds of like, why can't you do it? It's like, no, I'd rather die at this point. And then bomb goes off literally in Bruce's face, because he got in the DA's face to be like, you need to answer this question.
And so he just gets blown back.
And he starts losing consciousness, and it's like, oh, the police officers are just rushing in, and he eventually passes out and then wakes up in the GCPD. And it's right when someone's about to take his mask off, and he just flips.
Yeah.
And it's just
Smacks the
like
crap out of him.
he literally just like does a whole 360 turn and like hitting everybody with his cape to like give himself some distance. And I forget what ends up happening, but a couple of the police officers like insult him or still try to grab at his mask. And here comes Gordon, where he's like putting himself between Batman and all the other officers. And this new captain that's there is like, I hated the way he talked or like spoke. It was just like, you smoke way too much. And you also sound like you have a cold coming. It bugged me so much.
He did a very specific voice. It's
but
true.
yeah,
the
Batman. The new chief is like, you're really willing to risk your job to help and protect this vigilante. And it's like, what is it that he can do that none of us can? And he literally just like illegally went into a place that he wasn't supposed to be.
So this guy is Gordon's partner.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's why he's so upset that he keeps working with Batman instead of him.
Yeah.
And so finally Gordon asks for, okay, I want 1 minute alone with Batman, and then
I can get him to cooperate.
And then you guys can deal with this afterwards. And so he gets Batman alone, and he's like, we need to get you out of here. And they start getting closer.
This is the chemistry that's happening.
These two faces, and then he's like, oh, but how am I gonna get away? And he's like, you can fucking take the keys off my crotch and just and then get out that door. And he's like, oh, how am I gonna convince him that you weren't part of it? And he's like, you're gonna punch me in the fucking face. And then he punches him in the face, and he runs down that hallway. And then he grapples up to the roof, jumps on the ledge, zips up the
bodysuit, and then like has the attachments for his cape, and it's just like all the way like actual shoulders, and then around his thighs.
He makes a wingsuit out of his
cape. It is actually really cool. As it was happening, I was just like, oh my god, please don't let this be really dumb. And it is a little bit dumb, but it's like it's
awesome.
It's their way of trying to make sense of it, and it's actually done really well.
He jumps off the roof. He makes an amazing dive straight down.
Oh my gosh. And then the reflections of the buildings that show how incredibly fast he is going.
He shoots forward underneath through this tunnel, and then he pulls his parachute. It shoots back.
But it
hits the wrong angle, and he smashes against the roof of the bridge and ping-pongs onto the
bus, and then a bunch of other things on the sidewalk, and then he ends up being on the street, and just like a couple of rolls later, and then just slowly getting up. And it's just like, oh boy.
Yeah, he pushes himself to get
you
up.
can see the struggle happening of like, I cannot just stay here because I hurt. I have to keep moving.
He should black out at this point.
Again, after literally being blacked out, probably like 15 to 20 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This man has a concussion 100%. Yeah. No doubt. But essentially he's like, well, instead of going home and sleeping, I'm going to go and hang out at our secret hidey hole, me and Gordon, again. And so he goes up and to where Gordon is.
Gordon just being like, you couldn't hold back that punch. Thanks for that.
And he's like, I did pull back.
They were like, boop.
And you're just like, Jesus, this man hits like a truck. And then he's like, well, we need to talk about this. And he's like, well, we have to realize that there are other flightless birds.
And they instantly go to the penguin.
Yeah.
It's like he's the only other person that they've been trying to get information from. And they do come down to the thing of like, I mean, it makes sense. He's at the club there. They do their business there. Something probably didn't happen the way he wanted it to, and was just like, hey, I can make this work in my favor if I give some information, but in return, I'm protected. And if somebody gives me up, I'm about to come after them. And it's like, it makes sense how they got there, how they got to that conclusion of like, he could be the rat. It makes a lot of sense.
I mean, they just need to look for anyone has a name with wings in it. And
yeah, it's so weird.
We gotta put it together.
And from there they go to one of the warehouses, and then they do actually see that they're doing a deal.
Yeah, so
it ends up being like the drug bust that they did actually didn't really stop the process in the first place.
Yeah, so they're like, oh, this operation should have been shut down,
But it's
and
not.
it's like, well, that make it look like the biggest bust in GCPD history was actually a cover up, and it was not real at all.
Yeah, it was just in a way it's like it could have been real, but to get rid of whoever was running it in the first place.
Yeah, the
and
person
now it was
who's
easy.
really in charge is still
it's now an easier way for somebody else to come in and being like, we can still continue.
There's no
because
oversight.
they think it's done with.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, Miss Selena Kyle is there as well, and Bruce does his funny enough iconic like disappear reappear thing, and it's like right there.
Yeah.
And so he's like, Jesus Christ, you can't just say hello or welcome. And it was just like, it was great. And the moment gets killed really quick, no pun intended, because there's 2 bags in the back of this car, and one is a bag full of money, the other is, oh my god,
A bag full of body.
oh yeah, her friend got murdered. And it's just like, of course, the one way she opens this bag, full on her face, just fully bloody and like real beat up, and it's just like eyes are wide open and glazed. It is just like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's horrifying to look at.
It's a quick like stun moment, and it's like, it does also, like, for me too, it was just like, oh no,
well,
oh my god.
They do it in a perfect way where you're so caught in the scene where you expect it to be money, and the music suddenly cuts, and you're just like, oh fuck, oh,
like, oh Jesus, your friend really did die, and now this doesn't feel like it's gonna end well for you two. You're gonna be running on anger now.
It also
like,
shows you
full
that
on anger.
Gotham's not afraid to just toss bodies around. Like,
oh yeah,
it's not a safe town to be in.
Yeah, and so after this, it ends up being like they come out a lot sooner than they think, and flipping Bruce gets just blasted with bullets, and he just falls on the floor, and then Selena's just ducking, and then she looks and just sees Bruce rolling in agony from all these bullets that just hit him, and Gordon comes down too, and honestly I thought he was like up in one of the weird like scaffoldings that's nearby, or just buildings, but he somehow ends up pulling up, getting out of his car, and starts shooting bullets out at them.
Yeah,
that just had some type of cover.
Contribute.
Yeah, and then they do the Penguin and his henchmen end up getting closer to the car. Bruce is gone. I don't know how he got out of there so fast, but I mean, disappear, reappear. I mean, that's what he does. And Selena is gone as well. And
well, I'd be curious now, after seeing the whole movie, I mean, we could talk about this later, but what he does to get out of being stuck on the ground later in the movie.
Yeah, I guess.
He could have already done it once now, and we just never saw it.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that when we get to that.
It's interesting. But yeah, it's like they get back to the bags. It was like bag of money and body. And Penguin is just like, get the bags and I'll get the car, and he literally just drives off. He does not care about this other man that grabbed the bags.
No.
And then Selena comes in and just beats this man for the bag and just flips it on her back, and then just drives off. And then this is where we see Bruce in his very cool muscle car bat car.
Yeah, as he ignites the engine.
Yeah, it is actually really cool.
It lights up the whole room, and you're like, Jesus. And then he slams on the ignition, but nothing happens.
There's a
it
little like
lurches.
stutter, but it's like, I also want to make it's a weird intimidation thing, because it's like, it's just like how he is when he comes out of the shadows.
I could have believed that if it was like, and then there was like a bunch of reaction shots, and then he shot forward, but it was like, reaction shots. Okay, now I'm driving. Like, it seemed like he was having trouble getting it going.
I see that too, but it's just like a part of me that's like, that's like.
And also,
That
like,
would scare me.
I feel like Bruce is still making a lot of mistakes at this point.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. No, he is definitely making mistakes in this movie, and like he's quick to learn from them as well, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
And this, I based off the trailers, I did not know that this chase scene was gonna be a chase scene. It was good for what it was, but it was also a little bit annoying.
I'm conflicted on it because I thought it was amazingly shot. I thought it was like really intense and it was very clear what was happening. It could have been clearly like it could have been like a dark muddy mess and like I could have been like what's even where are you driving? But it was very easy to follow. It went on for 3 times longer than it had to go on because I just didn't care about it after a certain point. So I was like, the problem with this is that you gave away the money shot in every trailer.
Yeah.
And so everyone's waiting for the flip and the amazing dive through the flames, but it just didn't come for so long that I was like, okay.
Yeah, it was still pretty cool though.
I'm ready for this
once
scene.
it did happen.
Yes, oh my god, the actual moment is unbelievable. One of like the best Batman moments.
Catches up to him, makes him flip, and then they got him. And then they weirdly take him to like this other warehouse.
That being said though, there is a problem to me about that scene. And
which one?
It's the fact that it's too long before, but it's also too long after because there's the amazing moment where you see Penguin's reaction to Batman. Batman's like coming through the flames at him, but then instead of like cutting to maybe him like pushing him against the wall or whatever is the next scene, instead it's a scene where he kind of like
he bends down sideways and
him, and I'm just like, was any of this necessary? I don't know, but it's fine.
The way that it goes to us, like I fully like expected him to like turn, look, and just be like, I gotcha.
I mean, I couldn't see that. I thought maybe he'd have a one-liner or something, but there was just no dialogue.
Yeah, it was a real that last little snippet was very interesting, but I mean, it made sense to me. It was a weird intimidation, but being like, I gotcha. And that's all I could think about is just the eyebrows just going. But other than that, yeah, it ends up just switching to Gordon exactly the way that that Penguin says it is. Like, is this good cop and like psychopath or like
baddie cop?
Yeah, something like that. And I'm just like,
Batter
that's
cop.
more or less what they're doing.
Something like that, yeah.
Interrogating him in this other like outside of this warehouse, and they do have him like zip tied legs and hands, and they're talking to him and showing him all the pictures of all the people that are being killed and stuff. And Penguin is just like, "Why are you showing me this? I don't need to see this."
He's like, "This is disgusting.
Yeah.
Why would I want to see
like
this?"
It's weird because it is like he's of that status of being like wealthy, of like being like upper class.
People below
and just
me
being
have to
like,
do these
oh my
dirty
god,
crimes. I don't want to see the dirt.
Why would I need to be shown this? It's like it has no concern of mine, and it never will. And that's when they reveal the whole El Rata and La Rata and whatever the riddle was. And he's like, "Excuse me, you got that wrong." And they're like, "What? How are you to tell us?" And he's like, "How are you going to tell me I got it wrong? You guys you don't know nothing about this language."
It was also weird that, like, the white dude is, like, the one who fixes it for them. Like, there was no Hispanic villain that you could have thrown in there. But
and I'm just like, okay.
I mean, all right.
Like, he corrects them so quickly, and then both Bruce and Gordon are just like, oh my god. Did we make a mistake?
But like, and like Gordon, I kind of be like, okay, I could see how you make this mistake, but Bruce, come on.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, this is one of the moments where it's like, well, we done goofed.
But it also
we need to learn from this fast.
At the same time as I say that, it actually makes a lot of sense to me because at this point, Bruce has been nailing all the riddles, and he's like, yeah, I don't make mistakes. I'm so much smarter than this Riddler. And then he's like, oh fuck, it's such an easy mistake.
Yeah. And so that's when they make the connection too that Falcon is also a bird. And like,
Falcons also have wings.
It does the moment of like, oh my god, the only other person you know in Gotham right now, or as far as this movie's concerned, and you didn't think about this other man that is technically a bird in the name, just like the penguin. And I was like, what is happening right now? God.
It almost made me want to do like an old like cartoon version where he's like looking at the name Falcone and he's like, what does it mean? What is it? And then he like slowly like erases the E and he's like, Falcon. Those have wings. It's like, yeah, Bruce. I know.
Oh my God. It is a little dumb. And then it just goes I actually don't even remember where it goes after this, but they do leave, and it's just like this subtle thing of like Penguin being like, you gotta let me out, right? And he's just waddling towards them as they're driving away, and I'm just like, you had to do it. You had to add the reference of the penguin.
They don't leave yet. No. So you're skipping the scene where once they realize that, they go to the website.
Oh, yeah.
And so once they look on the website, they're like, oh, okay, so this is what's going down. And essentially then that's when the Riddler talks to them at the orphanage.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, all right, we're gonna head out to the orphanage. So Gordon and Bruce abandon the penguin, zip-tied to all hell, just stumbling through the narrows out there. And they rush out to the Arkham? Wayne orphanage. Okay.
Yeah.
And then they see at the orphanage footage of the old Wayne respawning, reclaiming, renewal project. Renewal project. Yep.
I was like, what are you talking about?
All right.
It's both the renewal as well as Bruce's dad doing his re-election trailer thing at the same time.
Yes,
and it's
like, well, the renewal was like his big campaign platform, and essentially what it was this giant fund of money that was provided by the Waynes, and it was going to be a government instituted program to help the youth and
youth and lower class,
help people rise out of the slums of Gotham and become a great city once again. Which didn't happen somehow.
It did not.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's just like this whole thing too, like it's a little bit building into, before they get into the room that this projector is on, is like a bunch of stuff, like small, like almost small punches that are being aimed at Bruce, just a little bit. And then it's like other riddles that are being like, you're almost there, you're getting closer kind of thing. And it's at a certain point that when they're in that room, Bruce sees something that kind of signifies a little closer to home kind of thing, really, quite literally.
Well, Gordon and him both come to the realization that, the next target's going to be Wayne. And so Bruce does the famous disappearing act.
Yeah.
And he jumps in his car and he starts vaulting across Gotham.
Yeah, and it's
he's calling Alfred on the phone. With
desperation, he's calling like nonstop to get Alfred on the phone. And it's like at the same time that's happening, it is showing Alfred going through all the regular like mail and stuff for Bruce and like for the household, and he does see the package that is addressed to Bruce, but it's really weird because
it says Bruce for your eyes only.
Yes,
and he's like,
for your eyes only, and it has a bunch of like stuff all over it, and he being Alfred and like the caretaker of Bruce, no matter how old he is, and it's just like, man, I'm also Bruce. I can see stuff before he does, so that I can literally protect him from stuff. And it's like, if it's a need to know, he's gonna know.
Yeah.
And so he opens it, and then it just starts opening up, and then inside is a letter that says to the Batman, and then he turns it around and it says fireproof. And then he looks at the other thing, and really quickly he realizes it's a bomb, and just tosses it, and literally probably gets like a step or two just to turn around.
I wouldn't give that.
No, it's just literally to turn around. Like he literally just takes steps to turn, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And then he's just blown across the room, and so it's still showing that Bruce is calling, and Penny actually answers the phone, and he's just like, quick, I need to talk to Alfred. I need to tell him something. I need to warn him. And Penny is just like, oh,
no. He says something terrible is going to happen.
Yeah.
And she
and
says
so
something
it already has. And we're
to be honest, that's the delivery that pisses me off, because she doesn't sound like, Mr. Bruce, something terrible has happened. She's like, something already has.
Yeah, like she could easily be working for a villain that's just like, haha, you thought I was working for you the whole time? No, I am not.
And it's like,
who you think I am.
To be fair, the next line is a lot softer. It's like, I'm so sorry, Master Wayne, or something. But just the way she delivers that part, it just felt so funny.
I mean, it's also too that she says like it was about an hour ago that it happened. It like she says it so like almost emotionless. That it's like, thank you for this information, but it's too late. And
it's like, Bruce, if you were smarter. If you hadn't gone after Penguin,
we just show up to the hospital, and it's just we're talking to a doctor that's being like, if he can get through this, he'll make us slightly better. He might make it through the recovery. Like, he just needs to rest and see how the night goes. And Bruce is distraught that, quite literally, I mean, poor Penny, she don't matter, that Bruce is, you could tell Bruce is like, I'm about to lose the only family I have left. And he goes back to Wayne Manor and just starts looking through all the information that his dad had, like this old
he
locked up room,
the giant
that's right, he does make a weird,
and then takes out cans of spray paint and just spray paints the entire manor, making some sort of PowerPoint presentation
on the floor.
Despite the fact that we've already seen his super advanced computer magically like erase little parts of the cipher to create a drive image. It's just like,
the other thing that bugs me about this too, it's like we're shown an overview and I'm like, Bruce, you're not seeing it the way we see it.
No.
Like, you're literally right there. And I doubt there's another higher area for you to see down from.
And this is always my biggest pet peeve when it's like a detective story where the detective is apparently brilliant, but it's only by like looking at a big drawn out cue card of two words next to each other that it connects. Because if they're right here, they don't mean anything. But if they're here, we have the answers.
That moment is just you're literally explaining the whole. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Falcon is another bird.
Yeah.
It's another type of bird. And it's just like that delivery is just like, yes, thank you. It is another type of bird. I don't know how you don't know that. But, sorry, that you could obviously tell that actually really infuriated me.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
But yeah, he does that whole thing, makes a mess, and then just goes into the files that his dad has, or like they still have in this locked up room, like really locked up room.
Yeah, with like 80 chains on it, and it's just like a do not enter sign, and also like a laser grid, and also like it was like
caution tape just for extra precaution to be like, don't come in here, don't you do it, don't. Secrets are in here that you don't need to know.
No, don't worry, we'll get to the caution tape. The caution tape is an important part of the movie.
He ends up looking through it, and it's just like, out of all the files, he manages to find the one renewal, one that has all the information he needs.
Yeah.
Because it's probably like a full filing cabinet,
yeah.
just stuffed with folders that say like renewal and like different like categories of renewal. Yeah. And he does look through it and ends up realizing that his dad did in fact make a deal with
the devil.
Yeah, with Falcone. And the only other way he can find out for sure what ended up happening is he has to talk. Yeah, he has to speak with Falcone. And so back to the club we go.
Well,
but
and then this is a fantastic piece of cinematography because they frame it exactly the way the door opens the first time and you see Batman. but instead you see mopey Bruce Wayne, and he's just
like, oh my god, the
Falcone.
mopiest. And like, I do appreciate how he holds himself. It's so different from when he's Batman. It's like you get it in the memorial scene, but right here you can see the difference in attitude. Like, he at this point he is like somewhat defeated.
Oh yeah,
because he did not see it coming.
And unfortunately, I think this has less to do with him trying to differentiate himself as Batman, and more the fact that like this is just his posture right now. This is how he feels.
It's like I don't even think it's that it's like the difference between himself and Batman. It's just like he does have that slump of just being like, that's how he is at this point in time. It's still really early on.
Yeah.
And it does also, it's like it has to be the way he's feeling, the whole defeated thing, and being like, I didn't figure it out. He's literally beating himself up for not figuring it out sooner and protecting the one family he has left.
All he has left.
Yeah. And so it is really interesting. I do appreciate, like you said, the shot, how it's the exact same frame from when he's showing up and he's in the Batman costume. And this one's totally different though, because one of the twins opens the door and it's just like, hello? It's like, I know who you are, but why are you here? And then does the same thing, closes the door, opens it up, they're both there. Obviously, the other one's a little more beat up than the other that opened the door in the first place. And it was just like, you know who this is, right? We gotta let him in. And Bruce literally just says, I have to talk to Falcone.
Yeah.
And that's where you get to like the nicer part of the club. It's not even where Penguin was.
No.
It's not somewhere you've seen before. And
it's where the real boss lives.
Yeah. And you're shown like there's so much security in this area. There's probably like 6 dudes in the hallway alone, like the entrance hallway. And Falcone is with like 4 other dudes, and Penguin included being there. And they're just playing pool. Like I wasn't paying attention to what they were talking about, but it doesn't matter to me, because it's like almost as soon as Falcone sees Bruce, he pretty much like dismisses everyone else, where it's like, I need to speak to him, leave. And there's no questions asked. Everyone just looks.
The Penguin shouts out Bruce Wayne again, though. This man loves Bruce Wayne. He's like, hey, Brucey.
And it was just like everyone just looks really quickly between the two of them and just pretty much just scatter.
Yeah.
And then Falcone is like really friendly to Bruce, being like, what do you need? What can I do for you? It's like, if you need a deal, I can do it. You just tell me the word.
He wants everyone in his pocket.
Yeah. And it's Bruce is just quick to be like, did you and my dad have something to do with each other? Did you do something for him?
Mm-hmm.
And Falcone gives him his version of what's happening. And it was just like, it's twisted enough to be like, Bruce can be convinced that this really did happen.
And so what he tells him is, back in the day, the press, they got their hands on some of your mother's, both her kind of backstory and then also her family's history. And the fact that it was just before the election,
and it was going to mess it all up.
He didn't want to let that get out, so that he went to the guy first, tried to pay off him, but when he wouldn't take the bribe, he came to me and was like, hey, I need this to disappear, make it happen. And then Bruce is like, fuck, I can't believe my dad would do that.
It pretty much just ends that his family isn't who they thought they were in the first place. And he is just distraught on being like, I held my family to such high standards, and here I am trying to make Gotham better based off that, when in fact I'm not doing it for what I thought it was in the first place. It's like they're just as corrupt as the people that are being killed right now. And then the next scene is him with Alfred again, just so conveniently wakes up, and right off the bat, Bruce is just like, you lied to me. I know you're dying right now, but you're gonna tell me the truth or I'm walking out of here.
I think when sitting with this scene, this is my least favorite part of the movie. I think so there are versions of Batman's parents
Mm-hmm.
where they are tied up with more mafia kind of stuff, and I wish they had the guts to go with that in this one.
Yeah.
And I get why they want to make it be like, no, don't worry, your parents were good people, they just made a mistake. But I think it's actually even more of a character motivation to be like, no, my parents were fucked up and they maybe made this city, even though on the surface they made the city better, maybe they weren't making it better.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this is really my chance to turn my family around and make it matter. But by doing this and having his Alfred be like, nah, it's they can sleep all right. They don't need to have that much of a heavy conscience.
Yeah.
You're like, okay.
But yeah, and then Alfred does give his that's the thing. It's there are truths to it that are similar. It's just viewed from different points. They can like skew it a little bit to make it more advantageous to.
Yeah.
I can't say that word right now, but you know what I mean. Yeah, to the person who's telling it.
Yeah.
And that's what Falcone did, because it's also too. Alfred does tell him that he was in a dark place, or a place that didn't leave him any other road to go to try and figure out how to fix this.
Right.
And it was just like, Alfred does say, like, I admit it was probably one of your father's lowest moments.
Yeah.
And he regretted it because he was so distraught after talking to Falcone and realizing that he did in fact kill this man, and that is not what your father had any intention of doing, or any intention of that happening to that man.
Yeah.
Like, he thought it was just gonna be like an under under the table kind of thing of like, take this money and just
go away.
Go away, don't say anything, and we're done. But I think it is a part of part of it is true like that, but felt like Falcone said, which is, I think is true, is that he did offer it. The man couldn't be bought. It was like, you know what? You're my problem. I'm here to fix the problem for somebody else. You're not going to take the easy way. Yeah. There's only one other way I can do this, and unfortunately you made the decision already without knowing.
That's true.
And yeah, and it's like, the thing too is that if Alfred didn't wake up in this moment, he would have totally gone this movie would have gone a totally different route from what Falcone told Bruce.
That's true.
And it's just like, thank God for it, because Bruce trusts Alfred so much. He's literally a father figure to him, because he's the only other person that's been with him since his parents died. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, if he didn't, it still would have followed the whole route of him believing Falcone over Alfred, which totally different universe. I don't think would ever really happen if Alfred were to say something.
Yeah,
it's just like, wow.
That would be a take, yeah.
It's like, Falcone took a chance with telling you his version and not realizing that Alfred could never wake up and tell the actual version that did happen. And it's just like, poof, the circumstances for all this to run the way that he was like, don't dig into this anymore.
You could do a what if episode. Yeah,
you could.
You've already got Commissioner Gordon here to do the narration.
It's so interesting. I liked the sequence that this played out to be, because it does put Bruce on a different trajectory after this talk with Alfred.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So catching up to the next scene. Okay, so we're gonna work backwards from this, because I know we need to get back to Falcone's thing where Selina Kyle enters. But what happens in between Selina Kyle going there?
It's Bruce and Gordon see the light on.
Yes. Okay.
Just like, you didn't do it. I didn't do it.
So Bruce rolls up on his motorcycle and he sees Gordon with him down there on the base level of the place where they normally meet. And he's like, oh, I thought you put up the light. And he's like, I thought it was you. So they go up and they instantly see Selina Kyle beating the shit out of a certain off-duty cop, let's say. And then she continues to beat the shit out of him. And while Bruce
Who knows
is
how
like,
long
Bruce
she's
is
been
like,
up
whoa,
here.
whoa, 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 what's going on? And she tosses him the phone, and she's like, listen to the voicemail. This is the man that killed my friend.
They took my phone.
There's full evidence of Falcone being in charge. There's in charge of him doing the hit. There's all the information
Him actually
we need on here.
killing this woman while on the phone.
Yeah.
And it's recorded of him, like, her last moments.
And so she essentially turns to Batman, and she's like, hey, let's kill this guy and then go kill Falcone. And Bruce is like, we don't do that.
It's like, we don't kill.
So he kind of talks her down. He gets the gun away from her. But then she tries
Bruce and Gordon get closer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she tries to launch him off the roof.
Another dumb part where it's just like they literally show like her bringing her foot up and on this man and just
bloop. Like, what did you think was going to happen?
Did you both just watch this happen thinking like, she's just putting her foot on him?
Yeah, it's fine.
While
no big
being
deal.
literally on the edge of this building.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what?
And then Bruce is like, Selena, don't throw your life away. And she's like, don't worry, I got 9 of them. And he's like, oh, that's cool.
I can take care of myself. Okay, bye.
And so
she just jumps.
She jumps off, and then he grapples and runs down the building.
Yeah.
To chase after her.
Poor Gordon
Gordon's just
he's
back
just up there with that man who
all right,
is an off-duty cop.
I'll do what I can up here. And so essentially she goes running towards Falcone's office. She puts on a disguise
and just fakes being like, oh, I'm worried about my friend.
Yeah.
Like she has like trying to portray that she has knowledge for her friend, and like it'll be a way for her to get in and talk to Falcone so that he can find out what information she knows exactly, and then from there to be like, oh, I have to get rid of you kind of thing.
Yeah.
And before it does happen and she's about to like take her gun out and shoot him, like one of his henchmen are just like, boss,
like,
you need to
right-hand
come
man.
you need to come see this.
Well, so you're gonna want to see this.
I don't know what it is that he's got to go see. Oh, it's the video. Yeah.
So it's the fact that they actually exposed that voicemail to evidence
on the news.
And so now everyone's coming for him.
Yeah, and then Selena oversees that's what they're seeing, and then all of a sudden just like pretty much announces herself there, and then Falcone is just like,
Oh, I'm so sorry. So while they're on the rooftop before, there is an important scene where Bruce is like, oh, no, that is after. Sorry, I'm mixing up scenes. So when she confronts Falcone, she does announce herself as his daughter.
yeah, she's just like, hi, Dad. And he real quick like, what, excuse me? And she just explains herself like, my mother
Oh,
is...
no, I was right. That scene is earlier when she tells Bruce about...
Oh, yeah, about being...
his daughter.
Yeah.
Because Bruce asked her, oh, then what is your relationship with him?
Yeah.
And she's like, he's my father.
What is your connection to him? And she explains like,
He's
my mom
why
worked,
does he owe you?
My mom worked there. We saw him a lot. And
he always looked at me different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it turns out Mom got killed, and she went through the whole process and all that stuff. And just a whole fight ensues between her and him. And man, he gets some good hits off of her. And I'm just like, how she didn't get knocked out with a flipping pool pole, whatever they are.
Pool cue.
Whatever. Pool pole sounds very interesting as soon as I say it.
And essentially what happens is he finally gets her down to the ground with the pool cue on her neck.
About to strangle her, and he's
to.
just like, I should have gotten rid of you just like I did with your mom sooner. And it was like,
it's the famous scene from Back to the Future 2 when he's like I should have gotten rid of you like I got rid of your father. Remember that? That's classic.
What?
Classic.
How dare you?
But yeah, and then essentially while he has her down there, we then cut back to Bruce entering the club as well. But
he being a little more secretive about it and doing full Batman.
He enters in his third outfit. He's entering the club with, this time is in his like drifter clothes where he still has the grease on his eyes, but he has a hoodie over it. And
mask.
He has like a jacket that kind of makes him look like he's 6 times bigger than he really is, and he's kind of getting around like a gorilla. And then he grapples up the elevators and makes his way into Falcone's kind of private office. And then by the time he does that, he's already back in his Batman gear.
Yeah, it's fast.
Like, he takes off the Batman gear and puts it on like it's nothing.
How intricate it is that he can take this off so easy and pack it into a backpack, and vice versa. It'd be like, take it off and...
He makes it seem like it's like the Spider-Man tech that can like come to his body, but
I mean,
like,
that too, and it could also just be like magical girl transformation, and it all just like...
It's true. I somehow doubt in this universe that it's a magical girl transformation. I know, but you never know. You never know.
To be as quick as he is, gotta be.
Yeah, gotta be something like magical.
That. Jesus.
Magically delicious. Anyway, so he rescues Selina and then takes down Falcone and essentially forces him down the hallway out to a awaiting like 40, 60 cops. Yeah. And then, because essentially, as Falcone's leaving the building, he turns to Gordon. He says, "Don't you know you work for me?" And then he says, "Not all
of us do."
And so there's a bunch of like the good quote unquote cops. I doubt they're not all fucking dirty
all
cops,
of them,
but whatever.
Who they could find.
It's enough for them to take him down. And as they bring him out, the Penguin starts freaking out, and he's like, "No, I'm gonna kill you.
How dare you?
And you rat!" And then,
as soon as he's about to like lift the gun
as
and
he pulls
actually
out
do it,
his own gun, he gets
a shot
sniped
goes
from the corner,
and they just take Penguin down. And he's like, "I didn't shoot. I didn't do it.
I didn't shoot." But like, also,
look at my gun.
Like, if you just touch a gun, you would know if it just fired.
Yeah, so. I mean, the fact, too, that Falcone fell towards the Penguin rather than opposite of the Penguin. I'm like, how does that work?
Yeah.
How did he get a bullet to go around? It ain't no Wanted.
That's true.
Even at that, I doubt in that movie they could do it from that close. They're always at a distance. Yeah. And just being like... curve the bullet.
You need some space
around this. So like, that's a good like 20 feet at least.
That's a good comic too. Anyway, we're off topic. Let's get back to the assassination. So Bruce looks up and he says, "Shit, I gotta go after the Riddler."
Brought the rat to the light.
He shoots up. Yeah, he realizes that, oh God, I completed the prophecy. I brought him into the light.
And just literally as he looks up into the lamp that he brought the rat into, is like the one window that oversees all of it.
Yeah.
And it's like weird because they all do get there. It's like, this man has been here the whole time watching us come in and out of this place.
So I'm going to kind of fly through this scene because this one doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Batman and all the GCPD kind of rush into his room and realize that they've missed him, but then get an anonymous phone
that's
tip. Probably from someone who's working for the Riddler, who's like, "Hey, he's at the diner right next door. If you want to go."
Yeah,
arrest
where
him.
Someone's just like, "We just got a tip that he's just at a diner around the corner or something like that." And it's like, "He's here now. He's there now." And then they all show up, and it does show the Riddler like just there, like messing with his coffee, and they all just blast through and then just slam him to the counter, and then it's weird because they do show him and he's weirdly morphing between like a couple of different expressions of being like elated that his plan is working and then being like confused a little bit, and then it's an expression I couldn't read when it turns and pans to the window and shows Batman like walking in between the cops.
The way that he plays his character, they play him very much like he's on the spectrum, like he's sort of like a little kind of he's like his chemistry's a little off, like he's not like quite there, and it's interesting, but it's very unsettling when you see him. And he's also very, very young looking, and it's also like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see what you're going
It's like, after this, we are what I assume the GCPD, and it's literally, he's already, no, actually, they have him arrested, and they go back into the apartment. And that's where it's the scene where you're like, what is that noise?
You hear the rats
then they're just like, it's the rats.
It's
and then
bat.
Bruce is just like, it's not. And then he just easily just puts his hand in to grab the envelope and out. And it's like, you have like 2 other cops watching him do this, and they're just like, how are you doing this? Like,
yeah.
What?
And then essentially, so what is that riddle in that?
Excuse me. I don't actually remember, but it does speak to like, it is a couple of jabs being like, I know who you are, and it's like, you can't hide from me.
Yeah, and well, essentially what it does is it gets him to get off his ass and go visit him in prison.
Yes.
And so once he goes to visit him in prison, they have their one-on-one conversation, and the Riddler says, everything's worked out great between you and me. We've all worked together. We've part of this together.
We've worked synonymously. And Bruce is like, excuse me, there's no we, it's you.
And then he's like, shut the fuck up. We're best friends. What do you know? You don't know what you're talking about. Everything is great. You're ruining my plan.
It leads to the whole Bruce Wayne, like the delivery of how he says Bruce's name, and you could see the hesitation, the horror, a bunch of different emotions just flash on his face of being like, how in the world do you know this?
Well, it's interesting though, because then in this conversation they talk about my favorite thing about Batman, which is Bruce Wayne died when he was 12 years old, and the Batman is his real face, and the Bruce Wayne is just a mask. Mm-hmm. And so the Riddler says that to him, and he's like, we both wear our masks, but the mask let us be who we really are.
Yeah.
And he talks about like, I loved seeing you in your mask, and he's like, it's not a mask. It's not a mask. No, what I was gonna say was like, They put so much effort into these masks, but all makes me think of Selena Kyle's mask and how much they didn't put any effort in there.
I know. It's like, it's the same thing with Riddler's mask. It's like, it is kind of just put together, but it looks cool. It gives that like threatening feeling of like, this man is not to be messed with.
Well, it's
and it
also
does add in a few more scenes. It's just like, ooh, this was really thought out. In just a generic kind of sense that it's like, it's hard to tell the difference.
I think the thing that makes it more unsettling is he puts his big old glasses.
His glasses over it, yeah.
And it changes the sort of look.
Yeah.
Pretty drastically.
And yeah, it's like after the reveal of like Riddler knowing who he is, which his name is not Edward Nigma.
Oh, yeah, that's a big thing. So they changed his name in this to Edward
Norton?
No, Edward Norton's the actor.
I know it is, but it's like it's really
Edward
close.
Something, and clearly they didn't want to make it like Edward E. Nigma because it's too on the nose.
Yeah.
But when you look at when they show him his IDs, he has multiple IDs, and
there's like different parts of the IDs that are like,
if you combine them, it would make...
Yeah, but the thing too about that I didn't realize is that it could be something he makes later.
Yeah,
like he creates this persona of Edward Nigma.
Yeah,
it's just like it works with how he perceives himself, and this conversation does do that, where he's like, I've always had a puzzle. I've always had to try and figure out a puzzle, and the puzzle's been my life.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's one thing that I can't quite figure out, and it's all of a sudden it clicked to where I know who I am. I know what I'm supposed to do. And I think this is literally how he's finding himself, and it leads to that scene at the end of the movie. But it is an interesting thing to think that he's creating himself this whole time, just like Bruce is. Like, they're finding themselves like to a T of like the mask is who I am, rather than this everyday person that everyone sees.
See, we got to get to the end of the movie, because I got to talk about what they're gonna go next with this, because it's actually really interesting based on that. But let's just kind of fly through. We have a few more scenes to go. We then jump back to Batman goes through to the crime scene again. Well, first the Riddler tells him, "You're not as smart as I thought
I gave you
were."
too much credit if you didn't
And
figure it out
so-
because it was all there.
Exactly. So Bruce is thinking like, "Oh, I need to figure this shit out. Like, I'm missing an obvious clue." And he goes back and he sees the murder weapon. And essentially one of the cops is like, "Oh yeah, I know all about those because my cousin is a carpenter. It's a
scraper or something like that.
It's a scooper. It's a something, right?"
Yeah.
And so Batman's like, a scraper.
I didn't think about it until now. I'm like, dang it. I didn't have enough
those in
time
my
to look it
carpentry
up.
class. And so he essentially just goes and he picks up the murder weapon that's like essentially in police custody. It's got like evidence, and he just starts smashing the ground and ripping it all up. And he starts tearing everything up, and the cops are, "Well, Batman, what you doing with that?" And Batman essentially pulls it back and reveals a map of all of Gotham City with like glowing points around all the corners. And you're like, what is going on?
It does have the, what is it, change or something like that?
Yes.
Renewal.
And
then that ends up
whatever
being
the password is,
it ends up being the password to decode the video, and it just ends up being like a farewell or thank you to his followers.
Okay, so this is another problem that I have with it. All right, so he's got this little Twitch channel, right?
Oh god.
And then
I hate the way that they said he has 500 followers.
Yeah, and so but see, that is very important to me because there are 500 people who went through his videos and decided that, oh, he is interesting enough that I'm going to follow him.
Mm-hmm.
But that means that there's probably, if there's 500 that followed him, maybe over 1,000 that didn't follow him.
Uh-huh.
So you're telling me all these other people watched his videos and never thought, maybe I should say
something
submit
about
this
this
something somewhere. There's going to be a guy who's like organizing terrorist attacks, but then
who knows really?
Then again, like we I guess had big attacks here too, and no one caught onto those. So maybe the Riddler could get away with this.
But yeah, it just ends up revealing that his plan is to literally blow up the seabed of Gotham that's protecting it from being flooded.
Yeah, so there are dams all across Gotham, and if these are broken all at once, all of the water will hit Gotham
and then
from every angle.
him telling all the followers, like, I appreciate for everything you guys are doing and believing the cause. We all know what to do and play our parts. And that's where it's just like, holy
one of the persons
shoot.
who's in the comments actually says like, oh yeah, if you go to Gotham Surplus, you can actually buy these masks and the jackets right there. They just sell them
and
on
the
a
type
rack.
of guns that they're all using and like suggesting.
And someone wrote, don't forget your zip ties.
Yep.
Just like, Jesus.
Zip ties and like cling wrap.
Cling wrap, that was it, yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like,
Yep.
These people, oh god.
Bunch of psychopaths.
And it leads to him being like, at a certain point, these will all go off one right after the other to destroy Gotham and renew it to like a fresh state to grow from.
To be the Gotham that we were promised.
Yeah.
The orphans were
And
promised.
literally it's probably like not even 30 seconds later that the first bomb goes.
It's as soon as the video ends.
Yeah,
It's just...
and it's like Bruce does his disappearing act on this police officer.
Yeah, of course.
And like this guy is like, what do I do?
What is happening?
And yeah, Bruce just runs, not runs, but like drives to try and get to, at least at first it was on one of the bombs, and then he just goes to like the emergency shelter that everyone ends up going to. And while this drive is going, it's showing the police officer he was just with in the apartment trying to contact people, and it's showing like none of the cell tower stuff works, calls aren't going through, even his walkie isn't going through.
The city
and then
is in disarray.
and then at the same time it's showing Selena Kyle trying to get out of the city, but a cop is telling her like, you need to go to the shelter.
All the exits are shut down. You need
no
to
one
go
is
to the
coming
center
in
of the
or
city.
out of the city.
Yeah.
And then that's where she sees like the water is actually starting to pool at her feet, and then she just starts looking around, and then it shows Gordon on the inside of the shelter.
Arena. I think
Yeah,
is what they
it
call
is the arena,
Yeah.
but it's they have it as an emergency shelter, and they show all the people that are already inside, but still letting people in, and he's being told like they're already reaching capacity for how many people are inside.
Yeah.
And it's still chaos because there's no one in charge. The chief, the replacement chief too, can't get everyone under control. And that's when Gordon steps up and just starts like telling everyone to be quiet and starts demanding like certain people do certain jobs and to stick to that. And it's like this is where he is growing as well to be the chief.
If you notice, they killed off all the characters so that they could insert Gordon as the commissioner, and they can insert Harvey Dent as the district attorney.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, so now these slots are available.
I thought it was really interesting. It's like for future stuff, they're already getting rid of certain things and all that stuff. And then it's also showing Real being like, I need to show people that I care, and I need to be like present and in the front of all of this rather than hiding behind like the rest of them were doing. And stupid enough, she walks right on stage, and then it's as soon as she gets to the podium, looks up, and it's like the quick not realization, but being like, there's somebody up there, and really quick that it hits her like, oh my God, I just made a huge mistake. And she gets shot in the shoulder. But then she also grabs like her lower abdomen, and I'm just like, ma'am. The first time that I saw her actually get hit, I thought it was like stomach. I'm like, you dying right here, because there is no way that you're about to survive both a shot to the gut with all this water coming into the arena as well. And it was just like, oh my God, you're going to bleed out because the water is going to help it come out faster. And then Gordon just runs, pulls her out to the side, and then all of a sudden she's just clutching her shoulder. I was like, where did she get shot? I don't know how. Did she get shot twice? She's more likely than to die here.
Weird. But essentially, so this is our big final action scene. A bunch of charges, a blow up on the roof, and Batman descends like a fucking
beautiful.
wraith.
It is.
Then we're not going to get into the blow by blow for this fight.
If I could watch this scene over again. It is absolutely
fucking beautiful, with Batman using every gadget he has, flipping left, right, and center, beating the shit out of everyone.
Running out of said gadgets as well. It's smart.
Using everything that he's got. To the point that he's like down to his bare basics at the end. And yes, bud. I see you. We're almost done. And so, essentially, it gets down to the point where he's almost beaten everyone, but then he's finally put in a bad position by one of the...
He gets hit by a shotgun, and then it's just like, oh boy, he's starting to weaken here and not really be able to get up as quickly anymore. And then I do appreciate that. He gets shot by the shotgun, and it's like over the ledge, so he's just hanging there. And then this other guy takes the time to like look at him, load the gun, the shotgun, take him out, and then load two, and then close it and like slowly put it into his face. And then it's just like it's. Right at the moment you think he's about to pull the trigger, Selena comes in and just knocks this man out with with those kicks that she does. It was like, they're fast too.
Yes, they are.
And she's able to like deter the guy a little bit and like knock him over. It was enough to like make him scramble and give her enough time to pull Bruce up.
Right.
And it does have this moment of like Bruce. No, she actually does knock out this guy.
This guy, yes.
Yeah.
To the point where you now think that all of the Riddlers are gone.
Yeah, and it's like she tells him like, it's okay. You've done what you needed to do. Don't worry about it. There are people here that can help and can take control of the situation. And then that's when some other guy, like, he does give in a little bit where he's like, all right, I better close my eyes.
Yeah.
And some other guy just comes and just starts beating on Selena, and it does get to a point where you hear like the shing of a blade.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this guy's about to stab her, like he's over her and she's stuck. Like this, I would assume like this guy actually just saw her take this guy out with her legs, and this guy was quick to realize, like, I need to take out the legs and make sure she can't kick me.
Bruce, realizing that he has no other option, slips into his utility belt and brings out this green vial of liquid and injects that shit.
He actually has like a little slot on his suit that like straight to the leg. Yeah. And it was just like, oh my god. I didn't catch it quite as quickly as I could imagine you did.
Yeah.
But it's like as soon as like he did it, and then I was like, that's more than adrenaline.
Yeah, so what it seems to be venom toxin, which is what Bane injects in order to get roided out. And it's very interesting because without getting too far down the rabbit hole, there is a great Batman arc called Venom, in which, in order to push his body further, he starts injecting venom, and he gets way too far down that road, and he starts becoming like an addict. Yeah. And so it'd be cool to see them play with some of that in the sequel.
I mean, especially if they're still doing like early Bruce Batman ideas.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this does hit back to like what we were talking about earlier, where Bruce just got hit with a ton of bullets, and it's like, how did he get out of that so quickly? And it's like, he could have used it right at that moment to be like, I need to get out of here and over to the vehicle.
Yeah, and I think this is a really great twist on things, because we've already got, in my personal opinion, 2 failed attempts at Bane with
they don't come
Batman
out
and
well,
Robin,
but
and also Dark Knight Rises.
We'll see.
This could be a way where you don't need to do the actual Bane character, despite the fact I love that character. If you don't want to deal with people thinking about those other versions, you could do a version where Bruce becomes his own Bane.
Yeah, and so after that, he injects himself, and it's just like, it's like you could see the rage, the adrenaline, everything that's pushing him through this. It's just like, it's also too like the weird like protectiveness he has over Selena, and he manages to take this guy out and just starts punching this guy with everything he's got, and probably more because of the drug that he just injected into himself.
He said it multiple times in this movie, we don't cross that line. And so the fact that he would have, if Gordon hasn't pulled him off this guy, he would have just beat him to death.
Yeah.
And so
it's like, you could tell too, like when they take the mask off of this guy, that's like, this guy, his face is so beat up.
Oh yeah.
Like he was probably a few punches away from getting his face like really like punched in and killing him.
Yeah.
It was not that many more,
No.
but it was about to be. And Gordon also asks him, like, who are you? And this line, I hated it, but it was also like, oh no, Bruce, you've made something that I don't think you had any idea was something you were creating in the process of all of this. And the guy answers, I'm vengeance. And it quickly changes to Bruce as being like, are you serious right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. Like, people look at what Batman's doing, and they see it very differently than what he sees himself doing.
Yeah.
And so he realizes that, like... See, the thing about Batman as a character is Batman is so malleable. And you can have the grittier, darker Batman versions, and then you can have what... I mean, we're getting there in a few seconds, but what's starting to be a more heroic Batman.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what I think this is going to lead to is, so the normal trilogy kind of arc is that you have a sort of upward swing in the first one, and then 2 is where you knock your heroes to their lowest. And so that really scares me for what's going to happen to Bruce after this, because now he's on an upward swing.
True, yeah.
And so if you want to bring him even higher in the second one, only to knock him down in the final act, that could be pretty terrifying. But
the thing too is, like, with this whole part of like Bruce seeing what he sees what he is thinking or like creating of his own, but it adds into the whole thing of the way people perceive the truth, which is just the whole Falcone and Alfred.
yes.
And it's just like, that is like, Bruce sees one way, the Riddler sees another way of what the two of them are doing, and then you have all of these other people that are being influenced by them, and it's like they take it the way where their own mentality is at the moment.
Yeah.
And it is very interesting because it's also like the whole, like, almost like the cult thing where it's like it's a moment of weakness for people and they see somebody at the moment that's inspiring them. It could definitely lead them in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And it's like the way that Batman is doing his thing, it's like it could be the way that literally the future Robin is being created. It's just like, I want to help people, I want to be a vigilante like that and do things that way. And then vice versa, you're easily creating villains that are like, oh, I just need to go out and do it myself.
Tying those two ideas together, it's the fact that, like, maybe Bruce does take on this kid as Robin and things are really starting to go well, and then this kid fucking dies.
Yeah, it's just like
where does that put him? That's not good.
Yeah,
but that could be interesting. But anyway, so closing out the story, once all the fighting is over, you start to realize that there is a giant electrical wire hanging that's about to hit everyone that's below it that's soaked in water.
Yeah, I was just like,
and so,
oh boy.
Realizing that he has no other option, he leaps for it, in mid-leap unleashes his batarang from his chest.
The only one he's got.
And slices it and falls 100 feet down and smashes into the water below. It
does make me so curious, though, for future Batarang. So, like, oh boy, the way he takes this off, and he only uses it twice in this movie. And it's just a really quick cut.
Well, yeah, so what's funny is, like, that it's actually stolen from Robin. Like, Tim Drake is the Robin that invents the R coming off. And, like, now they're kind of pushing that back to Batman. Also, there was a huge rumor leading up to this movie coming out when this movie was first being teased.
Yeah.
That this Batarang is made from the gun
that killed his
parents. But that makes less sense to me in a world where they never found the killer.
That's true. It's like, why would you take the gun and melt it down?
Unless it was a thing where the guy literally was wearing gloves, he tossed the gun away, it went into police
custody, and it was
evidence,
just like...
and then just got lost in the shuffle. Bruce stole it when he was like early nights as Batman. This is a story we could see later on.
Yeah.
And then
it's like the significance behind the Batarang that he wears on his chest as a reminder. I mean, it would be very interesting to see.
I thought we get some allusion to that during the movie, like a flashback or something, but
it was smart. It was smart not to do that flashback in this movie, because it's like it's been done so much, and it's like let's hold off a little bit and figure out how we really want to do this.
But when I say flashback, specifically the way that I wanted it to be was I wanted flashbacks to year one, to when he was already Batman, but he was really fumbling, and maybe he could have learned lessons from those fumbles that we see him put into action here. But anyway, these are just ideas for a movie that never happened. And so essentially he drops down to everyone, he lights a giant flare, and he
tries to start leads people
out of the darkness and into the light above.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, there's only one final scene, and that's Bruce and Selina saying goodbye. They both get on their motorcycles. They drive through a cemetery.
To see each other.
And then they go right and left at the gates of Gotham. And that's how the movie ends. Yeah.
It does, but then you also get that extra scene.
Oh, yes, you do. I didn't think about that.
On the news, it's like they're not relishing, but like appreciating Batman.
Celebrating.
Yeah,
Batman.
For helping and saving people in the chaos that just happened. And one of the guards is actually watching the news and actually paying attention to it while overlooking the cells of the Riddler, and
a mystery convict.
God, we already know that it is most likely
could either be Joker or
Two-Face. I didn't make that connection, but after seeing it, and also like the weird like what is only perceived as prosthetics because of the cheekbones, as well as the weird smiley mouth like impression you get from the shadow. And Riddler is having a fit on how they're actually perceiving Batman, and the Joker is just like, hey, this is only the start. There's always the comeback story of the underdog. Yeah, and then he is slowly convincing the Riddler into calming down and being like, don't worry, you're gonna have your time. It may not have been now, but it can be later. And the ending thing is like, the Joker, or this other prisoner, is telling him like, what's something that as soon as you start having more is worth less? It's something like that, right? Yeah, and then the Riddler like takes a second to think, and he's just like, a friend. And then the two start maniacally laughing, and it's like the Riddler with his weird laugh, which I feel like he was trying to find himself in this laugh sequence. But then you also have the other prisoner where trying to do a Joker laugh, but it was just like, it's just a little off.
Okay, so what's really interesting to me about this is the thing that this movie actually reminded me the most of is not any comic book or animated thing or movie or game even. Well, it is a game.
Yeah.
It's the Telltale games. And that's that a lot of this actually, it's the Bruce's parents being kind of shady. It's the fact that Penguin and Riddler are both major villains in that series. It's the fact that Arkham deals a lot in that series.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a grittier, like modern take on Batman. And I felt a lot of vibes from that, including the fact that their version of Joker is actually a very different Joker in the sense that he starts out as kind of just like a weird guy who is unstable. And it's only because of everything that Batman and him go through that they go from becoming, well, it depends on how you play it because there's not a choice, but the way I went through it was you become very close friends with the Joker, and it's just that he's just too far unstable that eventually it turns against itself and he becomes your greatest enemy. And it's like, if you could do something really different with Joker in this universe, I'm okay with this different take on it. But the voice I heard for the Joker that I know did not line up at all.
Yeah, it's different, but it's interesting. It's always interesting to see the different interpretation of both the actor that is playing the Joker and then like the maybe not the feedback, but what the director ends up saying, or like being like, be like this, or like, I want you to go take some inspiration from this. And I'm just like, who knows what they were told to be like. But it's always a sight to see when they do actually reveal and like start building on the character. And as far as this went, I kind of don't like it.
I mean, just between animated and live action stuff, we've already had like 20 different versions of the Joker. And so it's like, if you have something interesting to contribute, I'm here to try it. Like, between like Mark Hamill's Joker and then Heath Ledger's Joker and then Suicide Squad Joker.
Jared Leto.
Yeah,
Leto.
Jared Leto.
Oh my God.
Jared Leto.
We know who you're talking about.
Leto. Like they're nothing alike. And so it's kind of fun to see.
I mean, that's just, like I said, the different interpretations that people do.
It's like Hamlet, every great actor gets to try it once.
But yeah, I mean, it did have like a weird quick clip at the end, but we weren't fast enough or even thought about having our phones out.
Yeah. So that's just it's a viral marketing post-credit thing that sends you back to the website.
Yeah, that they originally went to in the movie, and it does actually just say that it's like come back later.
Yeah, so right now there's one that says come back later, and so maybe they'll do some teasers there for Batman 2, or maybe one of the or
like the spin-offs or something.
From what it looks like, from what I've gathered, they've already announced 2 sequels, and 4 spin-off shows. There's gonna be
Pretty sure about the shows.
and the shows
Oh,
are
you said
in production. Not
yes.
in production, in pre-production.
Yeah.
And so they might not happen, but so far what they're doing is Penguin,
you just said Arkham
Catwoman,
too, right?
GCPD, and
Ouch.
Penguin, Catwoman, GCPD. Yeah, that might. Maybe it's only 3 shows.
I don't know. I weirdly remember you saying too, like Arkham Asylum, but
Yes, there's an Arkham show that's already
because
in
it's
development,
also too like something to do with still explaining the background of his mom, because they say that she was in and out of the asylum.
Yes, and they also say that the Arkham family and the Wayne family were the 2 big wealthiest families.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean it'll be interesting. Based off this movie, it did leave a lot of. I mean, it did answer some questions throughout the movie that it made, but as far as like future villains and like where people end up going, like Selena, her leaving Gotham.
I think this is one of the best examples of the fact that people are just straight up wrong when they say that you can't have too many villains or too many characters in a movie.
You have to be smart about it.
Exactly. And I think this movie, it didn't try to be overbearing with the Penguin. The Penguin is just a guy in the city, and he
just
touches
know
the plot, but he's not like the central character. And it's like, thanks to that, you're able to have like 5 villains in this movie, and they all.
You don't have the various villains in the movie fighting to be the main villain.
Yes.
Yeah.
They all had their own purpose to serve, and they're not all just trying to do the same thing.
They're not trying to be chaos and cause chaos as far as each other's concerned in their own plan, but good job for having this as many as it had and still being cohesive about it.
Yeah, and it's actually really interesting because what I was gonna say was the way this movie ends, I'm very curious how quickly after these events the next movie will take place after, because my original want going into this was I wanted them to jump maybe 5 years forward to the point where he's already taken on a sidekick, he's already more comfortable in the role, and like we've developed the villains even further in the background, and so that they can come out and be more fleshed out, like costume kind of hooligans. But it's very interestingly, the way this movie ends, it actually kind of leads into my favorite era of Batman in the comics, which is called No Man's Land, and in that there's essentially this giant earthquake, and the American government decides that Gotham is actually too fucked up and too dangerous to even deal with. We're just gonna consider them no longer part of America. We're gonna cut the bridges, and they're just gonna be their own horrible place. And so what happened was throughout all of Gotham, the villains amassed strength, and they were like, all right, all you penguin fucks, you guys are going to wear penguin themed colors, and you are going to walk our streets, and you're going to beat the shit out of anyone who's not penguin. And so there was like the Penguin District and Two-Face District and Joker District, and like all the villains like tied up their eras of the land. But the problem with that is, as cool as that sounds, A, we don't have enough developed villains to do that yet, and B, the coolest thing in the comics was, because of how desperate and spread out things were, the Bat family really got to work in tandem to be like, all right, Nightwing is going to go to North Gotham, and Robin is going to go to South Gotham, and we're going to spread out Batgirl and Oracle and everyone's here.
I don't know.
We don't have any sidekicks. So.
With like how you say that it's leading into, but you're right. It's like there's not enough. I mean, it would be a ton to explain as far as like having all these sidekicks and all these villains.
Yeah, it definitely wouldn't be like a direct adaptation of it, but it's like in a way that like Gotham is totally fucked, and like they said things are going to get worse before they get better. So maybe are we going to see that get worse? Yeah,
I mean, it's still a lot either way, because I mean, with this movie alone, as we said, that with the various villains that they have, it could work. They could do it, but it does also mean that it's like having an in between to explain or build up these characters to make sense in a movie,
Which
and not without having to waste that time to explain them or build them, their backstory
I
and their
don't
motivations.
think this is what they're gonna go for, but the one opportunity they do have is, depending on when they make this movie, if they really make these series between them, they could use the series to really bring in some more
I
characters.
mean, it'd be like following in Marvel's footsteps.
Exactly.
Where it's just like you have WandaVision, you have Loki, you have Captain America and the Winter Soldier kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just like doing stuff like that that'll build up the Nightwing, Batgirl, all of it.
Yeah.
And it's like it would be really interesting. And it would also like be super cool, in my opinion, to like grab people from literally Titans, because they're all starting to like build into being more confident in themselves. And then you have the Batgirl show coming. It's very interesting if they decide to do stuff like that.
The show is actually going to be a movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know. It's just like, because like I keep seeing stuff about it, and it's like it's said differently.
Yeah.
It's
that's I think that's the weirdest thing that DC has going for it right now, where it's like it has a bunch of very interesting versions of the characters, but they don't necessarily line up.
yeah.
And so it's like that Batgirl is gonna have Michael Keaton as the Batman.
Everyone has
in
a
that
different
universe.
idea for the
And
show or
so-
the movie they're doing, that it's just like it would be cool to have them connect, but they're so different that it's just like we would just be shooting ourselves in the foot if we were to force them to fit.
Yeah.
They're just like, I want all of them, they're so cool.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be the fun part about Flash, because we're actually gonna get some multiverse
Yeah.
stuff. So
Yeah.
maybe,
forgot about that.
Maybe for just a moment in the Flash, he's gonna run past this version of Batman, and this version of Batman's gonna be like, what the fuck was that?
Who knows? But I had fun with this movie. I can't wait to see where it goes. It's actually Batman movie I've enjoyed for a while. I
Yeah.
think since that Batman movie with Heath Ledger. Like, I really didn't enjoy any of the other ones. I didn't like Superman v Batman,
yeah.
or vice versa.
I think
First Justice League.
I think
not so much.
my final review of this one is going to be, I think this is the best Batman movie. I would rank this above all the other Batman movies. This is my favorite bat suit for sure. I'm not sure if Robert Pattinson is my favorite Bruce Wayne, but I don't think it's a fair
We
thing
didn't
to
see
ask yet,
much,
because
yeah.
we haven't seen. I think he could be my favorite Bruce Wayne.
We'll see.
But
'Cause-
for now, I would say the best person to play Bruce Wayne is Christian Bale.
You're not wrong.
And by
I did weirdly like
by
Val
Bruce
Kilmer,
Wayne, I
though.
don't mean Bruce Wayne in the Batcave. I consider that Batman. I consider Bruce Wayne
The
when
philanthropist.
He's like in the hotel fountain
Yeah.
with girls, and he's just like pretending to be an idiot.
The Playboy bachelor.
Yeah,
I get
that
it.
guy, he knew how to
And
do
it's
that
like, from
stuff.
this movie, you don't get none of that.
No,
It's
and
just
I'll
a
be,
loner kid.
that's why I think
slash
it would be
adult.
so cool to jump forward a couple years and force Robert Pattinson to suddenly be like, oh, this Bruce Wayne, he's learned how to be suave and play this character when he's...
He's learned how to be in society without having to like be how he used to, or how he feels.
It's also really interesting because he needs to be like suave and funny, but not interesting enough to make people look at him for too long.
Yeah. It's like he has to make a whole new mask to cover it all up.
Yeah.
Or like his own like distaste for this life.
Yeah.
It was like, good luck. It'll all be so interesting to see.
Yeah, there's
But
a lot
I
of
agree. This
potential,
is
you know?
is
It's
probably
out
one
there.
of my favorites. I mean, if not my favorite.
Yeah.
And I was not giving this movie high hopes going in.
I know.
I was like, ooh, it definitely turned me into a fan. It did its job.
Yeah, it worked out.
Yeah, which, not gonna lie, I am most likely going to go see this movie again in the next couple of days.
That sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for watching our short little review of the Batman. We had a lot of fun watching this, and we'll be back with some more movie reviews very soon. We know
see it.
We saw a lot of great trailers. You know, we got Doctor Strange coming up.
Doctor Strange, Everything All at Once.
Everything All at Once.
Still no.
Nope.
Oh God, not of Planet Earth.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw that, I was just like, yes.
So
give me aliens.
We'll try and do more movie reviews in the future. We of course will be streaming more games very soon. But
yeah.
Until then. Drop us a follow, and we'll see you soon. Bye.